Because if you're not, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Other authorities, and like, well, if what he was saying was true, I would know about it. So then he must be wrong. And that's why I call it a religion. So what I brought up was Fritz Zwicky, and that was 1933, an observation of the coma cluster. So are you familiar with that? Because if you're not, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. We're not going to hold it against you. We don't expect everyone here to know everything.
I think he was
the dark matter scientist. Big deal. Go on. Where is it?
But don't just Google it and then just pretend to know about it. It's just so
I had to look it up.
Yeah,
I had to look it up to remember.
I know you
remember,
did.
You're dealing with somebody who's almost 70 years old.
No, brother, it's fine. This is what I'm saying. I'm not trying to get a gotcha. Okay, so, this is the point.
Oh no,
this is not just some random. This is not a random cherry picked thing. This is like one of the most famous things in your paradigm ever, right? Because this is the first time that there was an observation of this magnitude that so blatantly showed the prediction of relativity was egregiously incorrect. Okay, it showed that it only had around 1% of the necessary mass that was supposed to be there according to relativity. That the coma cluster, the cluster of galaxies, only had 1% of the mass that was supposed to be there for the amount of gravity needed to create that cluster of galaxies. So that's not like, oh, we're just a little off. Oh, well, science is never perfect. It's never one. It's so disingenuous, Austin, that you're expecting 100%. No. It's 1%. So if we were actually being intellectually honest and we had a theory that made a prediction and it was off by 99%, right? And we would either say this observation is wrong, we need to make sure this observation is correct, or our theory is wrong. Do you agree that that's a true dichotomy? Either the observation's wrong or the theory's wrong?
No, let me ask you a question here. You're saying Einstein's theory of relativity is wrong because of Zwickie's work, right?
Yeah, factually.
His dark matter idea does not contradict Einstein's theory of relativity.
He didn't have a dark matter idea.
It's basically the matter of missing matter because light's not behaving the way it should be behaving based on what we observe in a galaxy. There must be more mass in that galaxy that we don't know about. But it actually fits very nicely with the theory of, Einstein's theory of relativity, because it basically deals with the explanation of how gravity works. There is a mass in there, and Einstein's theory predicts that mass will have an effect. Yes, no, it's not. It's exactly it. Einstein tells us how gravity works through his theory of relativity. Zwicky argued that there must be more gravitating matter than we can see. In other words, there's more matter in there than what we see observably. It doesn't contradict Einstein at all. Tell me how it contradicts it.
Okay, so here's the deal. Okay, he didn't put a theory forward. It's an observation that shows that there was only 1% of the mass that had to be there according to relativity. So what they did was post hoc invent out of thin air, just fabricate out of thin air, this idea that there must be invisible matter there, because we can't even entertain the idea that maybe our theory's wrong. So that means there must be invisible matter. Okay?
Invisible matter that's literally 5 times heavier than the visible matter.
Yeah, that's a religion.
Who's jumping to the claim here? You're jumping to a conclusion that is unsupported right now. You're making a claim based on a fact that you have absolutely no evidence to base it on, that just because there's missing matter. Einstein never claimed that by looking at a galaxy, we should be able to figure out just exactly how much mass is there and calculate it. And if you don't see the mass, if you don't see the matter there, the fact that he argued there's more gravitating matter there. He said there's more matter there. He even stated, Zwicky
he didn't.
He argued it in his paper. Go read his fucking paper, you idiot.
You haven't read his paper. You haven't read his paper, though. Wait, time out. You haven't read his paper, though. You didn't even know it existed 5 minutes ago, and you just called me an idiot. Are you kidding me? Okay, I have read it. Paper? I have read it. What he actually says is that there would have to exist some other type of unknown type of matter in order to save relativity. He does not say, I'm putting forth the idea, I've come up with a theory that there's a new type of matter. He's
How
just
does that
saying,
change
look,
what I just said?
it's fundamentally different. He just simply is describing his observation.
There.
He doesn't say that he doesn't propose that he believes in a new type of matter. He does not propose a theory of dark matter. That didn't happen. In fact, there still isn't really a theory. There's a couple of them. There's a baryonic dark matter that's been like largely just thrown away and dismissed because it isn't particularly viable. I don't know. You don't know what that is. But if I tell you what it is right now, you immediately absorb it as though it's your new belief. As long as it gets you to the end goal of not having to let go of your current belief system, and that's kind of my point here. That's kind of my point here. Like, how is that science? Because what's so funny is now you're saying Einstein didn't claim you should be able to look at galaxies and then know the amount of mass there. Well, didn't this all start with you talking about how robust of a field astronomy was? Because are you claiming now that astronomy can't look at the sky and know? Wait, time out. No, I'm not moving the goalposts. You just made this claim. Are you claiming that astronomers? Are you claiming? Stop interrupting me. Are you claiming that astronomers cannot tell how much mass is there?
Can I claim how much mass? They can estimate how much mass is there, and based on the the properties of light, going around particular objects, you can have a pretty good understanding how much we expect the mass to be there. Now, here's the problem. Zwicky did say, and this is you saying it, that he expected that there would have to be other matter in there to save relativity. Basically, that's just the point why we came up with dark matter, why dark matter is a good explanation. And over time, we've seen this happen from one galaxy to another galaxy to another. Every galaxy that we've examined, we've determined there is missing matter out there that we cannot see visually that's out there. Now, it could be just massive black holes that can't be seen. They're going to warp. There's
another option. There's another option. What's the other option?
But they don't know what it is.
Yeah, what's the other option?
Time out. And what's the other option?
Go ahead. What is the other option? Tell me.
You tell me.
No,
what's the other option?
Your imagination.
I'm not going to read your mind. What are you jumping to?
You're telling me. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't even enter your mind. It doesn't even enter your mind that your belief is wrong.
No, you wouldn't say it for the audience. You don't want to be.
No. I honestly think he just genuinely didn't even he did until we brought that up. He didn't even think about it. And this is kind of the whole point.
As a non-astronomer, enlighten me. Witsit.
This is the whole point. Think about what you just did.
Now shut up and enlighten me and stop insulting me.
I haven't insulted
trying to enlighten you.
You sure have.
Can you just go on mute for a minute?
Think about what you just did, right? What you just described is they made an observation and they found out that their theory was wrong, and not just a little wrong, not like some acceptable error margin, right? It was off by 99%. So then post hoc, right? They said, okay, well, there must just be 99% invisible mass. And it's just baselessly made it up. The exact antithesis of science. Just baselessly made it up. Your evidence for it is only that it has to be there or my belief is wrong. Literally.
No, that's not true.
And then what you did, yes, at 1933, that is true. And then what you did was you took subsequent observations that showed that relativity kept being wrong over and over and over and over. And you actually flipped it around and presented it as supportive evidence for the existence of the post hoc rationalization that you initially proposed to avoid your theory being falsified. Do you actually not see how insane that is?
Where in the world did changing science, in other words, science changing its mind, updating theories, updating understandings, updating all of the information because they had new information come in to play that makes us wrong in the sense that we said, all right, Einstein's theory we've been showing in everything else that we do seems to be very accurate and explain everything that we've observed so far. But we have this anomaly. I'm going to finish first. We have this anomaly that's come along that apparently has changed everybody's idea as to whether or not, it's put into question Einstein's theory. But the person who came up with the basic observation also described ways that would probably solve the problem. Is there other matter out there and so forth? He did suggest that in his paper. He did suggest in his paper that
if you don't even define what dark matter is.
Okay, I'm going to finish what I had to say because I'm not quite done yet. So let me finish. All right. So the fact that science is flexible like this, really shows a plus for science, because we're willing to sit there and look at new information comes in, and we're going to try to find another explanation through more observations and more experimentation.
Just coped.
Now tell me
that
something.
Austin actually is the scientist here,
Oh,
because
God,
he's
can I
actually able
finish?
to change his position and consider other explanations, whether you or not.
Exactly.
What I was saying is
matter.
basically as science adapted and changed to, looking for more predictions to find ways to explain what was going on in these galaxies. What is this other idea that you're thinking about that I'm overlooking?
Oh my
Because
gosh,
gravitational matter itself is the one thing I'm looking at, something that causes, an enormous amount of warping of
How does it
All right,
work
look,
on the
man.
atomic level? Y'all don't even know what it is.
Chill. Check this out. Okay, science. It's like ironic. You're touting this idea of intellectual honesty, which is what science should be, right? And flexibility, which is where we have ideas, but like obviously the base of knowledge always increases. We make new discoveries and we find out we were previously wrong, and then we're intellectually honest and we update our theories, or we throw our old theories out when they're proven wrong. That's what science is. They did the exact opposite. They refused to throw their old theory out, so much so that they assumed the existence of something they had no evidence for.
That's how a hypothesis starts. You start it with a hypothesis. You start with a hypothesis. You have an observation. You see something going on in an anomaly. So you make a hypothesis. Let's take a look and see if we can't find what's going on here. So we have to make a model or a test for it. And to make a model or a test for it, we have to make more observations to see what a reasonable test will be. If we can't find a test, if we can't find a test for it, we'll say it's wrong. We'll definitely admit that there was something wrong.
No, you won't. It's been a century. It's been a century, and they still haven't done it. It's been a century.
What is it they haven't done? What is it that they haven't done?
They found a test to prove it.
Relativity.
And first of all, it's not an anomaly. Can you please stop saying that? In your paradigm, 85% of all the total matter in the universe is dark matter. Hey, is 85% an anomaly?
If you didn't know about it beforehand and it suddenly appeared into your data, yeah, it's an anomaly.
Good thing
it's a change in the data
ago.
And evidence. It's evidence that came forward that makes us change our mind. You asked a question. I'm going to answer to you. New evidence, new information's coming in. We're still trying to answer that question, but we're not going to write off Einstein's theory of relativity when everything else seems to support it. Everything else that's observed on
just stuff on Earth.
That one simple sighting is give me more information besides that one sighting. Yeah,
it
whatever.
works in less than 1% of the universe on Earth.
That's not true.
And we claim that it works for the majority of things.
You're making a claim, Taylor, that's not true.
Almost everywhere it doesn't work in the universe.
Taylor, you're making a mistake in claiming something is not true when you have no idea why relativity itself described what's happening here. There's something missing. There's missing matter. Yes, it did.
No, it didn't.
You could ask. Take a look at the paper that itself that he was writing about. He was basically saying we have all this missing matter. How are we knowing that? How did we find out this matter was missing? What was the evidence that gave us?
No. There was no evidence. It's called post hoc. It's either something invisible that we can't define, have no evidence for, have no idea what it is, can't actually find it, literally have no scientific evidence for whatsoever. Can't even define what it is in theory. Either that exists or our pre-existing assumption and theory was wrong. And instead of going with the second one, which is what science would do, because you can't just claim things with literally no evidence whatsoever. You can't claim things that you can't even define and can't even find or observe. That's insane. If that was the standard of science, then what stops us from making up theories about magical unicorns that make the earth spin? Why can't we have giant gnomes at the core that are just doing bench press reps that make it tremble for earthquakes? If we can just make up theories and we don't have to define it, we don't have to observe it, we don't have to have any empirical evidence of it, then how is that science?
Or know what it is at all. They don't know what it is at all.
Perhaps this goes back to what you were saying, Austin, about the contradiction within these two proposing theories. For instance, let's go with time. According to Isaac Newton, if I'm not mistaken, maybe you guys can correct me, time was constant, absolute, that was flowing at a universal rate everywhere in the universe, whereas Einstein says time changes depending on the mass of an object or the viewer of that object near a mass. So right there, we have a contradiction.
Yeah, I
Unless you
mean,
guys
this
think
is like
closer
this is crazy because this is to make it even worse
Mm.
now, right? Like if someone was, say, an ether proponent, they would say, okay, relativity is wrong. And what you're going to find is when you make more and more observations, you're going to find out that the predictions of relativity aren't going to match. And this isn't just like some little offshoot, little like particular byproduct of relativity, right? It isn't even like the necessity of time dilation or something. It is the fundamental primary claim of relativity. Like if you were to explain gravity to a child or to like a 10-year-old, you would say, hey, look, you would grab a ruler or something and say, this is matter. Okay, when you have a certain amount of matter, that's called mass, the amount of matter. Okay, the amount of matter that you have is what determines how much gravity you have. So matter equals gravity, right? Fundamentally, anywhere that there is matter, there is gravity. If you have more matter, you have more gravity. And the 10-year-old will say, okay, cool. And then you go tell them a story about how, well, we went and saw an observation where there's supposed to be a ton of gravity. So much gravity, super strong gravity, so much gravity. Like I could literally have this conversation with Aaliyah. I'm not exaggerating at all. So we made an observation, we looked in the sky and we saw so much gravity that these galaxy clusters, and I would show her a picture and you see these pretty lights, aren't those cool? Those are called galaxies. You see how they're all bunched up? That's a cluster, okay? They're so big that in order for them to stay together, there's a ton of gravity. It has to be a lot of gravity to hold them in. So then what would that mean, Aaliyah? If there's a whole lot of gravity there, what does that mean? And she would say, there's a whole lot of matter there. And I would say, but there's not, Aaliyah. They found out that there was a whole lot of gravity, but there was basically no matter there. What does that mean, Aaliyah? Oh, that would mean that gravity exists without matter. Oh, so then our idea that the amount of matter directly determines the amount of gravity wasn't true. We found out we were wrong. We learned something new, huh, Leah? And she would say, yeah. And I'd say, science is cool, huh, Leah? Isn't it cool that we can figure things out and then find out what we previously thought were true isn't true? Yeah, science is fun. That's not what you guys did. You guys went in there with your little. You guys went in there with your little. You guys went in there. No. It's just like it's so undeniable at that point. You can't deny it. If you are now going to try to articulate a position that a 3-year-old.
No. I'm just going to tell you what his paper
do you not get the point of doing that? Because now what you're going to do, no matter what you say, you're going to try to articulate a position that goes against what even a 3-year-old can understand.
All right, let's talk to a 3-year-old then. Yes, in 1933, Zwicky did describe what we now call as dark matter. Here's what he described. Okay, his paper is titled "Redshifted Extragalactic Nebulae," and it was published in, I guess it was in Germany in 1933. Helvetica Physica Acta. Okay, so it was Latin. A modern translation of his paper notes, usually cited as the first evidence for dark matter on the velocity dispersion of the galaxies in a coma cluster. Now, he was describing dark matter based on the fact of the coma cluster galactic speeds were going apart at a rate not fast enough to explain, with the amount of matter that was causing them to normally pull them back. They were accelerating too fast for that. What was doing that? There are two factors that are causing this. One is what we assume is dark matter. The other one is dark energies pulling in the opposite direction. And so as a result, that's our current reasonable explanation. And I say reasonable because just like back when Einstein's theory was first formulated, everybody was checking and fact-checking poor old Einstein, looking for ways to see if his theory is actually relevant and so forth. Nobody said it was true and absolutely true. No scientist has ever said that any of science is absolutely true. You keep calling it a religion. It's not, because we're willing to change our position all the time, as demonstrated in 1933, what happened with Witsik's paper when it came out. Now,
they didn't change their position.
Tell me they didn't change their position when they realized something is causing this and they went looking for it. That's a change of position. That's not
That's not.
making something up. That's actually looking for evidence for it. And there's plenty of evidence describing now not only this redshifting problem where it's not redshifting fast enough as it moves away from us, or the fact that when we have objects coming, Andromeda is blue shifted towards us. Why
Oh my
is that
God, bro.
happening? So
You're
what I'm
just
trying to get,
gish-gowling.
no, I'm not. I'm just trying to describe to you that whenever we get new information, we don't religiously hang on to the old ideas. We question our old ideas and see, is this new information going to change things for us? And let's find an experiment to find out whether it does or doesn't. That's
You
not a
didn't
religion.
question. That's not what happened at
science.
all.
Religion is not being willing to change your idea when somebody just presented to you a contradiction to everything you just said.
Dude, that's what you just said at the end is exactly what they did. Okay. So evidence that directly contradicts what you believe, all right, was observed. And instead of accepting that your current theory was wrong, you have a religious devotion to it. You have to hold on to it dogmatically, right? So you refuse to accept the evidence that showed the blatant contradiction and falsify the belief. You held on to it. It's not even on the table to consider it's wrong. So then you went as far as to just baselessly claim that there was something that's invisible there. And this was this was like almost a century ago. Almost a century ago, dark matter is still not properly defined. In fact, now they claim that 85% of the total matter in the universe is dark matter. And you claim that no one claims blah, 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 lie, right? The reason that dozens and dozens of different theories have been proposed by various astronomers, etc., astrophysicists, of modified Newtonian dynamics is specifically because of the problem of dark matter and how even after being assumed for almost a century, they can't actually verify it. They can't even define it. They can't even put forth a theory, like with no evidence, just an idea that even coherently makes sense and doesn't immediately get falsified whenever applied.
You must think science works overnight.
You have like all kinds of falsifications
Tell me
of
that,
dark matter. You have all kinds of falsifications of the assumption of dark matter. So for problem one is relativity gets disproven. Because it's a religion, you refuse to accept it. You assume that there's some invisible, magical matter there, right? Because it has to be. Because if it's not there, then our theory's wrong. But we're in a religion, so we can't assume our theory is wrong. So we must just assume something invisible there. We hold onto it for a century, still don't find evidence of it. But it's even worse than that. Now, assuming that that's there, even though it's just a placeholder and we can't define it, we don't even know what it is, we're just going to assume it's there, but we don't know what it is. Even when we assume it, it's now been disproven. Like, and to quote a revered astrophysicist from Australia, right, it's been disproven to like a sigma 5 confidence. Because whenever they have like merging galaxies, okay, based on the amount of dark matter that's supposed to be in them, it's whenever they come into contact with each other, they should slow down immensely, right? Because of all of the friction within those galaxies, because of all the dark matter. It would be like dropping a marble in honey. So it's like if you dropped a marble in an empty glass, it falls pretty fast. If you drop it in a glass of honey, right, it's going to go way slower. Well, with that amount of dark matter, when they merge together, it should slow down. And it did not only not slow down, it slightly sped up, completely disproving the idea that there was an immense amount of dark matter there, okay? And guess what? People like you still run around claiming to know it's there, claiming it's actually evidence of your claim. So tell me where in this story this isn't a religion. Like I'm like genuinely curious how that's not a religion.
I'll be glad to tell you. First things first, let's talk about the bullet cluster because you were describing that. That's basically when two galaxies collide.
Please don't get upset.
The amount of heat that's given off during this, as they pile into each other, should be just exactly predictable based on its gravitational mass. The problem is, due to lensing, for some reason, a lot of that hot gas never was detected. In other words, there was a massive amount of matter that went through without heating up the galaxy at all. This contradicts basically the fact that the observable mass, which predicts X amount of heat, was wrong. there must be something there that's going through that collision that's not interacting with normal matter and causing a gravitational lensing that's unexpected. So that's the first description. What that tells us is it doesn't tell us that dark matter is not true or true. It just it explains there's something there causing it. The fact that science patiently looks for and waits for an affirmation of an idea, not saying the idea is absolutely correct. No one's ever claimed that. They say it's an explanation for a lot of the behavior. And right now it's kind of like a thumbnail, a placement holder that holds together an idea for a while we test it for more information. The more observations we're able to make as we put things into space that allow us to look at, for instance, the James Webb Telescope that looks deep into these galaxies now and is looking for evidence of not only, I think there's another satellite that specifically is looking for dark matter. Now, dark matter from a molecular scale, how are you going to find it on the molecular scale? We've done everything we could try to do in the, hang on here. I'm looking for the actual reference. Okay.
Why are you pretending to know what claim I'm talking about?
No particle has been found that evidence that there's extra gravitational mass.
Well, it's not bending light.
Identifying the particle is still unknown. However, there is a reported experiment in 2024 that they're still looking. They're still looking for, and will eventually,
You mean like people are still looking for their God and their religion?
No,
Shouldn't
it's not a
this
God.
mass
It's
bend light?
doing experiments to look for an explanation that seems to be holding together everything right now. That explanation holds everything together as of with what we know so far. It isn't proven. It's not, James Webb data is pretty detailed on what dark matter is doing to these galaxies, but it's not telling us what dark matter actually is. So we have an unknown. Well, guess what? We had an unknown when Christopher Columbus sailed away from Spain. He didn't know what he was going to find, but he went out and looked for it.
Totally gish galloping, man.
No, but it's the truth on how science works. We see an explanation. We look for answers.
Let me do it like this
and see if we can prove the explanation, or at least decide that the explanation is correct.
Yeah. And you get an infinite amount of time to run around and then just pretend you know it's there.
I'm sorry, science doesn't work in your lifetime, pal.
Oh, that's convenient.
This isn't even science. This is purely hypothetical.
Yeah.
So let's just rephrase this here. So there is a phenomena that is integrally responsible for the vast majority of phenomena observed in the heavens. And we have no evidence of it. You can't observe it, right? It's invisible. You can't observe it. And we just have to blindly believe that it's there. And you're saying it's not a religion.
No, we say there's something there. Don't put words in our mouth.
No. Yeah, but people say
we don't say
people say that God is there too. People say that God is there too. What's the difference?
There's no evidence that God is there, but there's plenty of evidence that something is there. Okay.
Wait.
When it comes, you wanted the difference. Hold on. You wanted the difference. You walked into that your own trap there, because basically there's no evidence that God exists, but there's plenty of evidence that dark matter, something like dark matter, something described as dark matter right now, is definitely having an effect on galaxies, and we need to find out what it is.
Okay, wait. How can you say that something like dark matter? How can you use it as a standard of comparison when you have yet to define it?
Because it's the best explanation we have so far.
How can you use it as a standard of comparison if it's yet to be defined?
Because it's the best explanation we have so far. What part of that sentence didn't you understand?
How is it an explanation if it hasn't been defined?
Because you have a phenomenon that's happening that only can be described by something is there, period.
Okay, so so all you have is something? You're calling this science.
Relativity demonstrates, and light, gravitational lensing, the fact that these galaxies are not, moving away fast enough, obviously it's got extra mass in there that's causing it to slow things down. At the same time, they're moving apart.
That's not obvious.
There's something. There's something happening. There's something happening we can't explain. You don't like the fact that we used a placement. I'm going to finish this because it's not.
You're saying you're going to finish, but you interrupted me to do this.
No, you interrupted me. I was in the middle of making an explanation. You walked all over.
That's not what happened at all.
So
That's not what
anyway,
happens
I'd
at
like
all.
to finish what I was saying, which is basically
No, we
not
don't want. We want to hear
matter.
Austin's
It's
response
not-
now.
oh, God damn it.
Dude, you've been gish
Somebody
galloping.
let
You're
me
talking
finish.
about like 50 different
I don't
things.
care whether you think it's gish galloping or not until I'm done talking, and you're going to
You
let me
did.
finish.
Dude, you finished.
Okay, I'm
and
going
then
to
I
finish
started
talking.
talking.
So
and
here
then
we
you
go. I
interrupted.
basically described.
Oh,
I
you're
basically described
unbearable,
what.
dude.
Okay, let's let him get it out.
Get over it, Witsit. If you got hemorrhoids, go and get them fixed. But in the meantime, I'm going to finish what I
Are you
had to
serious?
say.
You're
What
so
the-
childish. You have to put up with this. We have to listen to this.
Yeah, I know. Another child speaking up. Wow.
Dude, you're
So
the
anyway,
one talking
back
about
to
hemorrhoids and like totally
Can we
things
get a
off
mod?
topic.
Yes, can we get him on?
Yes.
And like
I'm gonna
Angelo,
give
are you
another
not able
talk or
to?
not? Gio, I'm going to appeal to a mod
He's
if
trying
you
to
don't mind.
bulldoze
I'd like to
the
know what the
no,
hell's
I'll-
going on.
I'll
here.
mod
Why don't
everyone.
you finish what I have to
You
say?
guys stop talking. I'll mod for him.
Calm down.
So
Everyone, Angelo,
there
just
was
quickly,
a lot.
would you concede,
Stop
Angelo, just quickly, would you concede that anything with dark matter in it, any paper, any study, you
Wait,
could you literally could substitute unicorns, leprechauns, tooth fairy, Santa Claus, wherever it says
Something
dark
is
matter.
there. Yes,
Hang on.
yes.
Because you could substitute any of those as being the cause of the effect, because there is as
No.
much proof. But what's happened is you've kind of reified it by giving it a bit of a scientific name, dark matter, instead of leprechauns. Would you concede that there's as much proof for that as these other mystical creatures?
No, because dark matter basically is not described as something that's like completely not there. In other words, a unicorn, no demonstration ever that there's ever been, like God, for instance, actual physical demonstration
You're
of God.
proving my point, man. You're
Matter,
proving my point.
no, matter has an effect on gravitational lensing of light, and that's been demonstrated. Something is causing that lensing. Now, it could be that there's an invention in whatever universe.
So
This universe
stupid,
has
dude.
unicorns
Oh my
out
God.
there that are invisible to everybody, and they
You
are
mean like dark
causing-
matter? You mean like dark matter is
It
invisible?
doesn't matter what you call it. The point is something is having that effect. And guess what? It's Einstein's theory of relativity that demonstrated it's there. And even
That's-
and
dude,
even
it didn't-
Wiki, even
Dude,
Wiki in a paper in 1935 specifically said,
Let's do this. Let's do it like this.
I was using Einstein's theory of relativity to demonstrate the lensing.
Monologuing?
Okay, let's do it like this. Let's do it like this. Let's do it like this. Okay, I have an electromagnetic theory that replaces gravity for the universe. The universe is electric. Okay, the universe is electric. Okay, why is that wrong?
Where do you have your experimental proof that it's electric?
Everything that's in existence that we can actually observe has electric
So-
properties.
Right. And so
NASA
that's
found
what
the
things fall
worldwide
down, right?
electric field.
Wait. I just want to
Yes.
make a point here. Like, okay, you would say the universe is not electric, right?
I didn't say it wasn't electric. I'm asking you for your proof on why it is.
What I'm
You're the
saying
one
is, okay,
demonstrating.
time
I
out.
don't make a claim like
I'm
that.
not trying to debate you about that. You're not just, that's why it's so difficult with you. Can't be good faith. Okay. So you don't
Where's
think
it
the
bad
electric, stop, dude. You don't think that the electric universe is right, correct? You believe the current mainstream paradigm of, say, relativity in the universe, right?
Go on.
Okay, so if someone was going to come along and say, no, actually relativity is wrong, all that's fake, actually the entire universe is electric, how would you go about disproving it?
Yeah. Why aren't things falling upward?
No, dude, what are you talking about?
That's exactly where I'm
They
going
are.
with
What
this.
the
'Cause that's what you're going to use for gravity, and that ain't going to work. Because then
You
I
don't
should
get
be
it.
able to
Okay.
stand inside a cave and jump up to the ceiling.
Okay, dude. I mean, it's like
Actually,
he went as simple as possible. I went to something that I was thinking you would like at least engage with in good faith. It's like, okay, if I look at a galaxy and I see, or like, say a galaxy, a spiral galaxy, and it has like we use electro-optical imaging, right? And we see like what looks like a little black hole in the center of it, in the spiral galaxy, right? And I say, oh, well, if I take a ferrocell image of a magnet, it looks the same. I'm like, okay, so that is just a gigantic magnet, for sure. 100%, that's a gigantic magnet, and the center is just a portal to the ether. It's pure inertia. That's what it is, right? What would you say?
Nope.
Okay, and
You
so
don't have any evidence.
So listen. I have more evidence of that. I have 1,000 times more evidence of that than you have of dark matter because I'm actually observing it. I can literally observe it. I know it's there. I know it has those characteristics. Then I can come on the earth, replicate the phenomena, and observe the exact same phenomena, right, with the ferrocell and a magnet on Earth. So you agree that I have way more evidence of that than you have for dark matter.
For a localized electrical phenomenon, sure, absolutely.
No. For that, the galaxies are magnetic.
It's not a galaxy. It's not a galaxy. You cannot prove it from a galaxy point of view because you're dealing with an object or with a electromagnetic field that basically is restricted to a small area. You cannot just take it and look at that particular observation you made here on Earth in a small little area and then suddenly apply it to an entire galaxy.
So I made an observation in space. I looked out in the sky and made an observation.
How did you measure that galaxy?
We're not measuring it. We're just talking about an observation.
So you basically looked at that galaxy, how it was behaving, and then came to the conclusion that it was electromagnetism.
Do you agree that I would have more evidence for a claim where I can observe that it's actually there than a claim where I can't even see it?
No, because you don't need to see it to see the gravitational lensing. In the case of dark matter, there is physical things going on that are explaining something is there. Whereas you cannot describe your electromagnetic universe because you have no way to observe it from the galaxy point of view. You got to look at it on a local stage and then suddenly expand it out and say, well, that's the way it's going on in the rest of the universe.
What? That's what everyone would have to do, dude. No one's going out.
I just showed you how they didn't have to do it. I specifically said
stop interrupting me every time. No one's going out into space and then taking like a universe or like a galaxy into a lab, okay? Although I will shut you down on that too. You can literally replicate all galactic formations with plasma and magnetic fields on the Earth, literally all of them, including spiral galaxies, you name them, all of them, literally all of them. And the idea of like the bending light effectively, right, which is all you're talking about, like that's perfectly replicated with the magnetic field and plasma. And that exact same phenomenon is actually what's used in a ferrocell image. You take ferrofluid, right? And then you put it in between two optical flats, two flat pieces of glass, and then you wrap lights around it, and you put a magnet underneath it. The ferrofluid interacts with that magnet, and then the lights get distributed based on the relative density distribution within that fluid, and it creates different optical effects, like a torus field, like a little spiral around the central hole, black hole in the middle of that ferrocell image. Right, so you can replicate, and this was done back in the 50s. They replicated every single galaxy formation in a lab using plasma and magnetic fields. But set all that aside, it's like that there's no way that you can answer the question honestly and say that there's not more evidence for something you can directly observe than evidence for something that you can't define and can't even observe at all, right? And that just shows that you're being intellectually dishonest. And that was his point about unicorns and leprechauns. I could say God is literally just inhaling and exhaling, and that's what's making the galaxies spin around. But he's invisible, so you can't see him. But the reason that you don't need that much matter there for that much gravity is because God's there. And God's throwing gigantic magnets around the universe, and then that's what's pulling all the galaxies in towards each other. If it's invisible, wait, time out. Do you not get the point? If you have no
problem.
You have no more substantial position than anyone else if you're claiming that you can't even observe what you're claiming is there, and you can't even define it. You can't even tell us what it is. Can you define dark matter?
Okay. First, two things. Number one, I did already describe how we observe dark matter. We know something is there. We don't know what it is.
No, we don't observe it.
Let me finish.
We don't observe it.
Number two, your idea of this little magnetic experiment that you've demonstrated in labs all over the world has one big problem to it. The minute you scale it up to any size larger than, say, a football field, it doesn't work anymore. All of a sudden, it fails. It fails miserably because they tried it. They scaled it up. Go look at your experiments.
Cite it.
Cite the experiment. Cite the experiment.
You just made the claim that someone scaled up. You're saying that someone took something bigger than a magnetic. You're saying that someone took a magnet and a thing of plasma that was bigger than a football field and replicated. No, they
tried to scale it beyond that size. No, so now what I'm trying to say, the point is that the minute you try anything electromagnetic outside the scale of small room or whatever, you're going to run into some severe problems, which is why I asked you why I can't jump to the ceiling in a cage. Because, what's causing things to fall down? Electromagnetism?
Red herring. Like we're talking about...
It's what we're talking about, gravity.
No, we're not.
Yes, you are. You're explaining why this mass is there or what's happening here.
Faster than gravity's pulling it down. Maybe have you looked into the worldwide electric field NASA found after 60 years of searching?
What's even funnier is it's like what you guys don't get is it's only in your paradigm where you think that what causes something to fall on Earth is the same thing that causes galaxies to move around. And you guys have been so indoctrinated that you think it has to be that way. Like whatever the cause of the galaxies moving, it has to be the same thing that causes the rock to fall when I drop it. There's no logical connection to that at all, other than the fact that your indoctrination claimed that that was true. Literally just to make the point, like your version of gravity could be true, or some modified Newtonian dynamics or whatever could be true when I drop the rock, and then the galaxy could be magnetic. Like it literally could just be independent of each other. And you're over here trying to force the parameters of your indoctrinated belief system onto me and claim that I need to claim that the reason the object's falling is magnetic if I'm claiming that the galaxy is magnetic. That makes no sense at all. But the thing is, I wasn't even trying to debate this. I would absolutely dunk all over you if you actually tried to debate me about the possibility or viability of an electric universe and then the galactic formations being magnetic in nature. Like guaranteed. Like guaranteed. But that's not what I was trying to do. That's not what I was trying to do, though. I was just trying to get you to just be honest, bro, because this all started is perfect. And the whole reason I even brought this up, we started talking about the idea of religion, belief systems that require belief, right? Like you have an indoctrinated belief system built upon the doctrine of men, and it requires you to just blindly believe it. And then you said, no, that isn't true. And it's based on evidence and it's just science. And if we get more evidence that showed I was wrong, then I would stop believing it. And you were starting this conversation. The reason I jumped in is I heard you mocking people that believe in the Bible, right? And you're going to claim you weren't, but you were. You were backhanding people that believe in the Bible. And I'm like, yo, you don't have any more of an intellectual footing. You're looking out in the sky and you're making up claims. For this to end with dark matter is very fitting, because that's like the most egregious example. Like, how could you claim someone's, and in fact, it's way more logically consistent for someone to believe in God than to believe in dark matter, because they can at least define it. They can articulate a coherent definition.
Really,
of
what's
what
God
they
look
mean.
like? Does he look like you or me, or does he look like an alien? Come on.
Notice the interruption.
Yeah,
Nobody's
like
seen
defining it doesn't even mean that I have to say what it looks like anyway. I could say God's invisible and still define him. I can still define it, right? The
Fine.
primary.
Can I get back to your electric universe problem?
The primary mover, the supreme intelligent agent.
I didn't come here to debate your religion. I came here to talk about science. Science is not a religion. So nice
good thing
try.
I'm not trying to do that. Good thing that you're just avoiding what I'm saying.
You fucking are, and you know it. Don't lie. Come on. Can I answer your question about the electric universe, please? I really got an answer for you.
Stop interrupting me. Try to catch up. I'm not trying to debate the existence of God. I want you to acknowledge that is way more viable than
I won't acknowledge it. It's not more viable. There's your answer.
You're not even letting me say the question.
No.
You won't even let me say the question. You won't even let me say the question.
You wanted me to agree with you, and I don't agree with you. Is there something wrong with that?
Dude, is something more viable if it can be actually defined than something that can't be defined at all?
Viability has nothing to do with it. The evidence that demonstrates that it exists is different. You have no evidence to demonstrate God exists, but there's plenty of evidence that demonstrates something out there is causing these galaxies to do something
the absence
really
of evidence isn't evidence.
You brought up your own idea of what that evidence is. You said the electric universe. I want to explain to you why that doesn't work.
I did not bring that up as evidence of anything.
Is not a good idea to provide a good explanation for the expansion of galaxies. Okay,
I didn't do one reason you're wrong.
Why?
Wait, time out. Absence of evidence isn't evidence. Do you understand that?
Let me finish. Okay, there is a piece of truth behind the fact that there is an electric field out in the universe. NASA certainly described it and so forth. The problem lies in the size of it, though. It doesn't mean electricity explains cosmic expansion, dark matter, or the motion of galaxies worldwide better than gravity does. Here's why. The problem is scale and evidence. Large electric fields in plasma tend to get screened because of the positive and negative charges rearrange themselves. Once you have that charge switching, you're going to have a big problem with an explanation. Okay, the University of Texas Plasma Physics notes and describes shielding this way. Plasmas do not contain strong electrical fields in their rest frames because currents can short out the internal electric fields.
They're not in rest frames.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not. Galaxies aren't in rest frames. Good try though. So, and it doesn't even matter
Electric
because you're
forces
trying
can
to.
shape
What you're
local
trying to
plasmas.
do.
I'm going to
What
finish
you're
now
trying
because
to
I
do.
took a breath and
You
got
just
a
stop
drink.
talking,
No,
dude.
because
This
I had to
is
get a
so
drink of water. Do you mind
annoying,
an
dude.
old man get a
Dude,
drink of water
you're
and
trying
finish?
to
All
change
right,
the
guys, just
subject.
stop. Let's
Where are the
reset.
mods?
One
Like,
quick
let me
note.
finish.
Stop for 1 second. Just
if
stop
I
for 1
walk away,
second.
nobody does nothing.
Just stop for 1 second. Austin, before you guys just got into it, did you say that something with evidence would be more valid than something that doesn't have evidence and couldn't be substantiated? Was that your
Yes.
claim? Okay, and
Yeah,
then
of course.
Great Angelo, you disagreed with that. So that's
No,
sort
I
of
said
where
there
we
was
got.
evidence. No, I said there was evidence that there's dark matter out
Actually,
there
no, hang
or
on for a
something out
second.
there
Hang
and
on
no
for a
evidence
second.
for God.
Stop for 1 second. That doesn't mean go off on a different point. So that was Austin's claim, and then he
Yes, I
asked
agreed
if
with
you
that.
agreed with it, and your response was no, you don't agree with it.
No, I
So
agreed
I
with that
think one
part.
of the issues in this conversation is repeatedly you'll dismiss or disagree with something that you don't even know what was said, and then you'll go off on a tangent about
I
something
may
that
have been a way
wasn't
to get
said.
water when he said that.
No, you said
No, you
no.
didn't, and you
Okay, well
just
then I said no.
disagreed with it
Okay, I
again.
agree with. No, I just agreed with it just now. I said yes, you need evidence, and I demonstrated where you needed
Okay,
the evidence
your
and where the evidence
entire
was.
last 2 points have been you
Oh,
expatiating
for fuck's
on
sakes!
you
Why are we
disagreeing
detailing
with
this?
it.
We can agree. We can both agree that evidence
'Cause we're throwing you
demonstrated
out.
makes a
Just all talk.
stronger argument than something without evidence. But I already demonstrated there's
You've
plenty of evidence.
repeatedly said that is not your position. Now
Will you
you're
fucking get
taking
off your
on
high
that
horse
position.
and just didn't I just say I'm taking this position and I'm agreeing with Witsit?
Okay, so then
on
can
this
you see that
statement,
what you've
and then
been doing is a
explained.
total waste of time, though? Do you not get the
No,
point?
it's not a waste of time. You
Listen,
guys are
Great
wasting
Angelo,
your time
that's
because you're
happened
going
about 5
Jesus
times,
Christ!
brother.
What a bunch
Listen
of
to me.
children in here.
Listen to me
I
for
don't
1
like
like,
second.
that the old
you
man
That's
didn't
need
hap-
to
say
get it
Stop
something.
talking for
together.
1
He's
second,
wrong.
please.
Oh
Stop
Get it
my!
talking
together,
for 1
please.
second, please.
What a fucking
That's
bunch of
happened
children.
about 5 times where he's asked a similar question to
Okay,
that.
I'm sorry I'm
You,
senile and I
Oh my
missed
God.
oh
all
my
that. Galaxy,
god,
shut up and
dude.
dude, this is
And nobody's
unreal.
gonna need
So
him.
that's
Like,
happened
it's
about it's unlistenable because that's happened about 5 times where he's
Yes.
asked a question like that where something with evidence would obviously be more viable than something without evidence, and you just go, no, I disagree. Now I'm gonna go off on this other tangent for 2 minutes, and then the original point gets lost in the weeds unless he keeps pressing you on the same question, and now I'm pressing you on the same question, and you're saying you agree with it, but you've disagreed with it this entire conversation for the past hour. It's incredibly infuriating.
I don't think he remembers what.
That's why he's saying you're being bad faith, because he asks you a question like that, you say you disagree with it, and then as soon as someone asks you, oh, do you actually disagree with that? No, I agree with that the whole time. That's why it's so frustrating.
Just ask him to repeat what you just said because I'm not sure. Like,
And then he
And
interrupts
I'd
in the
like to.
middle of somebody asking him a question.
And
Yeah,
while
I'm in
this
the middle of
you
trying to
guys-
describe what's going on with the electric universe, and now you don't want to. Apparently, you're going to run for it. Is that what it is? This is why you're
Okay,
doing
so
this?
let me
Cal?
address that. You said that like 3 times.
Thank you.
That's one of my favorite topics.
I know it
No
is.
one's running away from it. But I brought it up as an example about another topic we were discussing, and what you attempted to do was cling on to it to avoid the other point. And I just didn't let you do that. So now
Go
you're
ahead.
trying to reframe it as though I'm running from something. No one's running away from something, man.
Okay,
Like,
go ahead. Just get to the
but
point.
okay,
God,
you
stop
should be.
flogging the dead horses.
Dude, this should take maybe 10 seconds. An
So do
intellectually
it.
honest, shut up. An intellectually honest position would be, of course, I don't actually know that dark matter exists. We don't even know what it is. Of course, I can't claim that it's a stronger position than something that can be observed. And of course, if I'm choosing to believe it, it requires blind belief. And if I'm choosing to ignore the evidence that showed my prior theory was wrong, and then choosing to believe something that I don't even know what it is, I literally don't even know what it is. I can't see it. I can't define it. I can't explain it. I can't tell you how we're going to find it. I know nothing about it. We've assumed it was there without knowing what it is for a century. Even assuming it's there, it continually doesn't work. It now makes up 85% of the whole universe, but I don't know what it is, right?
And in
To
good
claim
faith,
that,
he did ask him to define it, Austin, and he didn't.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So we're arguing about whether or not something exists, and then you refuse to even define what it is. How in the
At
world is
one
that not
time,
insane?
at one time, people used to think that when you sailed off into the ocean, you would sail off the edge of the earth. They actually thought that at one time. What did they do? They finally
didn't
sailed
know
boats
that.
far enough. They finally sailed boats far enough and found out that you didn't have to sail off the edge of the earth. You'd run into other continents and so forth. Even on your flat earth, for some reason, you can go around the ice wall and still get, somewhere on this earth. But that solved, that was a unknown. We had no idea that there was no drop off point, that you could actually sail anywhere you wanted to go. Okay. That was something an unknown. Dark matter is the same way. We don't know what it is. We see effects of dark matter. We certainly are demonstrating with experiments plenty of through gravitational lensing, galaxy cluster crashing, lots of observations that point towards something there. We can't describe it, but it's not a religion, because what we do is we look at that evidence and say, we need to start looking for the answer for that. No one's looking for God. And I don't want to attack your religion, but I'm going to just tell you
that's not even true.
no
That's not
one's
even
going
true.
to look for
Yeah,
God.
don't even think.
That's
totally
that's not
Most religions
true.
tell you
That's
not to go look for
true.
him.
But
You'll
he
find him
just
on your own.
compared dark matter to falling off the earth, bro.
Yeah.
So
But listen,
you're
that's
saying
not
that
what
they're
you're
both
saying.
Yeah,
wrong?
totally
They're
not
not-
an
Wait, time out.
analogy.
What you're saying isn't even true though. Like for like a century, people assumed it, and then now it's become so wrong repeatedly that people like a huge portion of the mainstream astrophysics and astronomy field is proposing modified Newtonian dynamic theories or other competing theories that specifically don't need dark matter.
Yeah,
So if what
micro-black
you were
holes.
saying, was true, and we know it's there, and there's all this evidence that it's there, then over half of your field of like the younger generation of physicists wouldn't be proposing or competing theories that don't need it. Okay, so what you're saying is just fundamentally wrong. And instead of
No,
saying,
actually
so are
not.
all those people wrong? Are all of the astrophysicists within your own paradigm that are openly acknowledging that we need to give up on this blind goose chase that there's dark matter because we still can't define it? Every time someone puts together a definition, it immediately gets falsified. When we assume it's there and put in our equations, the equations don't work. It doesn't match
Not
the
true.
observations. So are you saying it's not true? So all those people are wrong?
No, I didn't say that. In fact, I'm not a proponent of dark matter. I've been sitting on this, waiting for you to go down this rabbit hole where you actually said there are people out there who disagree. I'm a proponent of the micro black hole theory, which is basically there are so many micro black holes that account for all of the missing matter out there, and that explains the dark matter.
My God. By the way, that's just more of
idea.
an ether theory. That's more, by the way,
It's
that's more
not-
akin to the ether theory. It is actually, because like a magnetic field, basically a little mini black hole would be like a portal to the ether, basically. And then if you actually look at, if you actually wanted to know the way this world works, right, then you would step away from your belief and you start to look into an electric dynamic theory. And Tesla explained that matter occurs, right, or exists because ether is thrown into infinitesimal prodigious worlds of velocity, so like little tiny vortices that are extremely fast, and that manifests as matter. And if that energy resides, that motion resides, it reverts back into the ether. People maybe thought that sounded crazy. Then when we started to look into the world of quantum and we started to make observations on a smaller scale, what we started to see, they did not see little particles bouncing around everywhere. What they saw were little vortices that had different spin and different momentum. Exactly what Nikola Tesla said, right? Because at that time they assumed that the atom was the smallest thing, it was indivisible, and now they claim that's 99.999% empty space, and that there are subatomic particles. And when they looked on the scale below the model of the atom, they started seeing all kinds of competing motion, different spins, different vortices, different momentums, different speeds. Exactly what Tesla said. So like when you're trying to invoke something like, when you're invoking something like a black hole, right, which relativity can't even be applied to. You can't even apply relativity to a black hole.
The application of quantum particles, entirely quantum is literally at the quantum level. It's not going to describe the universe as a whole. And
but that doesn't make sense.
It'll add to it, and it may solve some of the problems, but what I'm basically trying to tell you is...
The universe as a whole is comprised of the universe on the small scale, though, right?
We'll both agree on one thing. So long as we don't know what something is, if we make an effort to go look for it and try to find out what it really is, or try to get an answer, that's not a waste of time, right?
You actually, yeah, sure, of course. Do you actually
Okay,
believe that there
so
is?
now-
I want to ask you a serious question. Do you actually believe that there is no God?
Yeah, of course not.
You think there's no God at all?
No God that's interfering
Okay.
with
And
our
so
lives.
do you believe in any? Do you believe in the metaphysical at all, or
No.
do you think that the material world is all there is?
Yep. So far,
Okay. Have you looked into NDEs at all?
Indian.
Near-death
NDEs.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mean reincarnation or what
No,
are you
no, no.
talking about?
Near-death experiences, like when people die.
Yeah, it's all chemical.
It's all chemical.
It's a biological response to a trauma of death. It's a
No, no,
biological
no. But like,
response.
have you heard?
It's-
Have you read the stories though? Like, okay,
Yeah,
like there was
yeah,
a
yeah,
study.
yeah,
There was a
yeah.
study done by all atheists. By the way,
My
all
sister.
atheists did the study, and there were people that like when they would die on like a operating table, they would come to and they would tell a story about how 5 rooms down in the hospital there was another surgery going on, and then the doctor went to grab his pin. He couldn't find it. He asked the nurse where the pin was. The nurse stepped back, and they all heard the pin crack because she stepped on it. And then later on, they interviewed them and found out that exact thing happened. And he said he watched it. Or the other person who died, and then whenever he came to, he gave a serial number, and it was the serial number of the equipment that was up on the ceiling during his surgery whenever he was dead. And he said that he floated out and saw it. So set all that aside, if you're actually interested, because that's like a good starting place for a materialist. These are other materialist atheists that started looking into NDEs, and they're like they're not materially explicable. But even beyond that, like, have you actually have you heard my argument about the first and second law?
No, and I'm not interested
this would be
in
great.
any of this.
Okay, it's going to take maybe you're not interested. It's going to take maybe
No,
like
because
a
I'm
minute.
literally, I'm, as an atheist, I don't care.
Yeah,
I have
but
other
okay,
things on my
wait, time out.
mind that are
If
more
God
important.
was if God was real, would you want to know?
Show me some evidence.
But if he was real, would you want to know?
Not anecdotal. A couple of people said this.
Doesn't
That
matter.
ain't
Just
gonna
purely hypothetical question. If he was real, would you want to know?
If he was real and had an effect on my life, maybe, but he has no effect on my life, so why do I care?
No, no, no. So if God was real, would you want to know?
No.
You wouldn't want to know. So
Oh.
if God was real, you would prefer to remain ignorant and be an atheist anyway.
I couldn't care less because I don't believe that there would be any God out there who would say, basically, hold my soul hostage for all eternity.
I didn't ask you about any specific interpretation of God, man.
That's the next level.
Right. Okay, so let's say he
He's starting
exists,
with the
and you find out that he exists. So I got one big problem with that. How bored
I don't
is
care.
he?
Okay, here's the thing. So, do you agree that matter and energy cannot be created nor destroyed, only transferred?
Go on.
That's the first law of thermodynamics, right?
Yes, go on.
Okay. So, if I want to figure out do you agree that everything in the universe is comprised of matter or energy?
Go on. Yes.
Okay.
Pretty
So,
much, as
then
far
if we're
as we
going to try
know
to
so far,
so
we
if we're
have an
going to talk about the
understanding of
question
that.
if we're going to talk about like the question of creation, then the question here would be how did all the matter and energy in the universe get here, right?
It was compressed into a singularity, and so the energy and the mass were all compressed into
It
a
was
small space. That's
compressed?
exactly, yeah. Space and matter were all compressed into
Well,
a singularity at the time of the first
But I asked how it
expansion.
got here, not like
It was here
you're
all the time.
okay, there you go. There's your answer. So if we're going to look at how did the matter and energy get here, if we apply the first law, stop, dude. Okay, if matter and energy cannot be created nor destroyed, only transferred, and we're asking how did all the matter and energy in the universe get here, if we're not going to violate that first natural law, then we have to say it was always here.
No, it's a
right?
yo-yo
Okay.
universe. It pretty much
We have to
explains
say it
real
was
easily.
always here.
No, it wasn't all. Okay, the singularity wasn't always here because it was probably another
I
universe.
said the
at
matter
one
and
time.
energy. I didn't say anything about a singularity.
The expansion and eventual retraction. There's a
matter-
lot of
the
theories.
matter-
There are
Sounds good.
theories out there. There's
Sounds
there's
good.
the soda pop theory out there that I came
Sounds
up
good.
with when I was 13 years old, which is
Okay,
basically
dude, it doesn't matter
universe
how
pop
you
into
describe
existence.
it.
All these
It doesn't matter
little
how you
different
describe
universes.
it. They all have the same variable of all the matter and energy was just always here. Okay, and then it changed and it came in different forms. Well, it doesn't matter. Okay,
Sure.
so okay, cool. Okay, so the other option, either the matter and energy was always here, or it wasn't always here and it was put here. That's a true dichotomy, right? So you're obviously going
No,
with
it's
the
not.
second. What's the third option?
Demonstrate how it got there.
Wait, time out, dude. What the?
How did somebody
Okay,
put it
we
there?
don't
How
have to do
an
that.
It doesn't
intelligent
matter.
designer put it there?
You
We
said it
don't have
wasn't a
to
true
decide at this moment.
dichotomy, bro. Okay, a true dichotomy requires you offer a third viable option, not ask about one of the two options.
Yeah,
Okay,
third viable option is that it just basically has always been here, and
that's
there's
one
more
of the
than one
two
universe.
options.
No, there's several different options for it as far as the existence. We're not the only singularity. We're not the only universe,
What?
and we're certainly not the only
Okay,
intelligent life.
option
He's
one
not
is that.
tracking.
Okay, the question is, how did all the matter and energy get here? Option one, it was always here. Option
Okay,
two
I'll
is it
go with that
wasn't.
one.
Option two is it wasn't always here.
Yeah, I'll go
Okay.
with the first one. You can go with the
Of
second
course.
one. We both have a
Okay, well, no,
disagreement.
we're going to go with the first one. We're going to go with the first one because if we're not going to violate natural law, we have to go with that one because it says matter and energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So we
Alright.
can't say that the matter and energy wasn't here and then was created. We'd violate the first law, right? Okay, so now we're going to go to the second law, which says that in really simple terms, systems are seeking equilibrium, entropy increases, the amount of usable energy decreases. Okay, so the amount of usable energy decreases always in
And
the
when
universe.
it decreases, what does it get converted to?
Wait, time out. If the amount of usable energy in the universe is always decreasing, then it had to have a beginning point to decrease from. Right?
No.
And to quote Stephen Hawking here, right? He said there's a historical, and I'm paraphrasing, right? But there's been a historical argument about whether or not the universe had a beginning. And up until the early 20th century, the side claiming that it was always here may have had an argument. Now knowing what we know about the second law of thermodynamics and that the amount of usable energy in the universe is always decreasing, we now know that there had to be a beginning to the universe. The reason for this is because it had to have a beginning point to decrease from, similar to human progression. Humans had to have a beginning point to then progress forward from. You can't go forward. You can't decrease infinitely, right? Decrease is saying there's less of something, which means you had to have an amount greater than previously to then have less of it. So for the amount of usable energy in the universe to be decreasing, it had to have a beginning point to decrease from. And that's quoting Stephen Hawking, who then cites. He also cites Arthur Eddington when he says that, and he says it's no big deal if you have a theory that doesn't match observations, because oftentimes in science we get better equipment and better technology, and we find out that our current theories were wrong or that our observations were wrong, and we do. But whenever it comes to the second law of thermodynamics, if your theory is in conflict with the second law of thermodynamics, then basically you're hopeless, right? There's no way out. So now
It's not in conflict.
we know. So wait, time out.
When energy decreases, what does it turn into?
Time out. If the amount of usable energy is
a question, because it's going to do that. You got to understand something. Your energy increases, okay? When it completely decreases, it has to convert back to matter. Period. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't completely disappear. No, energy and matter are the same thing. So your matter. Yeah, as stars collapse, the energy gets exhausted. All of matter, everything becomes matter rather than radiation. Energy. Hawking radiation and black holes demonstrates that it gets radiated off into what?
Is Hawking radiation matter?
What is the matter in Hawking radiation? What has he described it as?
It's all irrelevant. Usable energy decreases every time.
There's particles being released. Matter is being released.
First of all, your paradigm doesn't even claim that it turns into matter, dude. It doesn't even claim that. It claims it turns into
the point that I'm getting at
unusable energy. You don't even dude. We're almost done. If the amount of usable energy in the universe is decreasing, it has to decrease from a beginning point. I just invoked one of the most infamous atheists within your own paradigm to save us time. Okay.
So I'm not
appealing to his authority.
I'm not going to let you walk over me because I was in the middle of describing what is exactly wrong with what you just
you interrupted me, demanding that I answer your question about what happens to it once it decreases.
Right, and when I went into that, I was explaining what it is. Okay, now I'm going to explain it.
Radiation is photons, by the way. That's a side note. Continue.
But that's just it's a red herring, right?
Yeah, I know.
I think you're the one getting a red herring because you're overlooking Big Bang expansion, collapse.
I'm not overlooking anything. No, that's fine. That's fine. I already yielded to that.
It's a simple, eternal, expanding and collapsing cycle universe.
No, you can't have that happen.
Yielded to that. God.
So what's the problem with it?
Okay, so are you even listening, dude? So if we ask the first question, how did the matter and energy in the universe get here? If we're going to not violate the first law, which says matter and energy can not be created nor destroyed, only transfer, we have to claim it was always here. Now we're going to look at the amount of usable energy in the universe. It's always decreasing, which means it had to have a beginning point to decrease from. So if there was a beginning point, then it could not have always been here. So when we go back to the first question, how did the matter...
either.
So when we go back to the first question, how did the matter and energy in the universe get here? We have to claim, because there was a beginning point, that it was put here. That requires us to violate the first law of thermodynamics. So if we have to invoke something attributable to a force that's not limited to the laws of nature, then that is by definition supernatural. So now we need something external to the universe, eternal, that's not limited to the time of the universe, right? So we need something external and eternal and supernatural to create the matter and energy, right? Because again, the first law is that matter and energy cannot be created. Now we've had to violate that, so we need something that can violate it, which is not limited to the laws of nature. So a supernatural creator that created all the matter and energy in the universe, which is all that exists because everything is matter or energy. We just discussed that. So what we have now found out is applying the first and second law, it's literally inescapable that we need an eternal, external, supernatural creator that created everything in the universe. Sounds like God.
I can give you sources that say the universe couldn't have been eternal from peer-reviewed papers and physicists.
Is the
Because
opposition to the
Furthermore,
Abrahamic
let's
God
say-
or to
let's
the
say if it is
overarching
eternal
complex?
now,
would you
go
like
ahead,
them?
You realize that your
I'm just
argument
kinda wondering,
Hold on, Rixky wanted to get
specific
in.
type
Hold
of
on, let's
God.
let Rixky go, and then I'll
Well,
let Tyler go.
Please, it
I mean, he
doesn't matter
point-
right now. But I want him to concede. Like, I'll give you papers that the universe couldn't have been eternal. Do you want them?
I don't care.
Angelo?
Yeah, that'd
Send me
be
whatever you
fabulous.
like.
That'd be
But
fabulous.
can
Rixky
you
wanted to
like
get in as
we
well.
do
will
not
you
fo-
concede the
okay.
universe could not have been eternal because usable energy decreased over time? They haven't had any mathematical model or equation to overcome this.
It's cyclical. There's ways to explain. There's two arguments here. One's cyclical, and the other one is just an
Both of
infinitely
those
expanding
still
universe.
do not negate that usable energy decreases over time. Do you understand?
Yeah, I understand
They've
that, and I'm
explored it in these
okay.
particular
It
questions
converts
with the
itself to
cyclical
matter. And we've
universe.
talked about that already, so I'm not going to go
Oh
into an
my
argument with you on
gosh.
that. I would
Oh,
like
I
to point something
scream.
out to Witsit. Witsit, there's a philosophical argument for God. Okay, now here's the problem with your philosophical argument.
No, we're
So
not
just
going to
fully-
philosophical arguments. We're trying to nail this
Can
down.
I finish
I
my
made a physical
explanation?
argument.
You're
I made a
totally
physical
changing the
argument.
topic.
We do not fully know X, therefore God did X. That's your argument.
No, it's not.
What?
That's
What are you
exactly what you
talking
just
about?
said. The
Dude,
origin
what
of the
am I talking
universe
about?
is
First
fully
law,
explained. God is
hang on.
possible
Get
and
into
is
it
a
now,
possible
Rixky.
explanation.
Back on the rails
Hey,
really
gentlemen,
quick.
Wait,
Angelo,
this is
stop,
audio
guys. Just stop for a
chaos.
second. Just to get the conversation back on the rails, because there's a bunch of stuff in between what the point that Austin made, and then Great Angelo didn't have a chance to respond. Great Angelo, can you steel man what Austin just said to you, so that way you guys can stay on the same track and not go on to a different subject?
Yeah, I have no problem going on to not going on to a different subject, but Tyler wants to throw another subject at me, and I just wanted to sit here and just say no. I want to go back to the God question.
No, it's
Yeah, right. So
supplementary.
he just made
hear
a
the
point,
question.
and I'm just asking you to steel man it, so that way you can refute it fairly. And if not, Austin can probably repeat it for you, so that way you can steel man it and repeat it fairly, or refute it fairly.
Go
You
on,
would
Austin.
want to
No,
know
that's
the
a-
best argument, right? The strongest version of it.
Okay, so would you
I bet
like
he
him
will
to
present it.
repeat his point? That way you can refute it fairly?
Yes, please repeat it.
All right.
So
Austin,
if we're
you can
gonna
repeat
ask,
it, like, simply, that way he can refute
yeah,
it.
we're just gonna really simply, we're just trying to figure out how the universe got here. The universe is made of matter and energy, so we have to figure out how the matter and energy got here. The first law says that it can't be created or destroyed, so then we're gonna have to say that it was always here to adhere to that. But when we go to the second law of thermodynamics, the amount of usable energy is always decreasing, so it has to have a beginning point to decrease from. So obviously, always here and beginning point are contradictory. They can't coexist. So when we go back to the first question and ask how did all the matter and the energy in the universe get here, we're going to have to say that it was put here. And if we say that it was created, we violated the first law of thermodynamics, right? And if you have to invoke a force that isn't limited to natural law, that's by definition supernatural. So you need something external to the universe, eternal, supernatural, and the antecedent of creation is creator. So if it's creating matter and energy, it's a creator. So we literally need an external, eternal, supernatural creator to create the universe to adhere to the first and second law of thermodynamics.
And potentially that creator could implement something that is eternal once it's begun. It puts it into like a cyclical nature, but it still would have had a beginning point.
And then, Great Angelo, you now have a chance to respond to the point. That way you have he just repeated it for you.
Well, for one thing, the universe may not have had a true beginning. Okay, the Big Bang is, one interpretation of it. But there's a problem because you have a lot of models out there that exist, not only an external force, your theory, cyclical, okay, and just emerging from a prior quantum state. There could be another entirely different dimension that this universe popped out of. There might be other dimensions that we're not even aware of. This universe specifically has the ones that we identify, but there could be hundreds of other dimensions we're not even aware of that are physically possible. So that argument that
doesn't matter. They have to have an
origin. An eternal origin from a god. They don't have to have an origin.
Yes, they do.
Our concept of an origin maybe is that they were always here, and that we don't, time.
No, usable energy decreases over time.
No, if you have time not existing at the time of a collapse of it, either a collapse of a universe or before its beginning, because of space-time being irrelevant. Our concept of time forces us to decide that there has to be an external force that started everything because there has to be time beforehand. We don't know that yet. We have no idea about that. And as a result of that, we can't conclusively, establish that God is the one that created everything. If there's a possibility that an emerging from a quantum state or another dimension for our universe could have an infinite number of universes and an infinite amount of time.
Quantum state in what universe?
Who knows? That's my point.
So
that doesn't matter, though. It doesn't matter, though,
possibility of some unknown, undescribable realm.
It just doesn't matter because, it still adheres to natural law, But here's the thing, right? Stephen Hawking, you agree that he famously said there is no God. He proceeded to, create works his entire adult life to try to substantiate that possibility. This is him reluctantly coming to the conclusion that that may not be the case. And one of his final works that he put out was this idea that basically time has some type of corporeal component, effectively like a circle. And even in that paper, he basically says that this is intrinsically contradictory. This is internally contradictory. So I'm just going to quote Stephen Hawking here to explain this concept to you because you seem to struggle with it. You just said that there could be an origin and it could have always been here, which is just contradictory, But this is his quote.
It's two explanations. It's not
I'm going to read the quote.
They contradict each other, but they're two possible explanations.
I'm going to read Stephen Hawking's quote for you, okay? It says, "This argument about whether or not the universe had a beginning persisted into the 19th and 20th centuries. It was conducted mainly on the basis of theology and philosophy with little consideration of observational evidence. This may have been reasonable given the notoriously unreliable character of cosmological observations until fairly recently. The cosmologist Sir Arthur Eddington once said, 'Don't worry if your theory doesn't agree with the observations because they are probably wrong. But if your theory disagrees with the second law of thermodynamics, it is in bad trouble. In fact, the theory that the universe has existed forever is in serious difficulty with the second law of thermodynamics. The second law states that disorder always increases with time. Like the argument about human progress, it indicates that there must have been a beginning.'" That's Stephen Hawking in The Beginning of Time. And then this is what Sir Arthur Eddington said. "If your theory is found to be against the second law of thermodynamics, I can give you no hope. There is nothing for your theory but to collapse in the deepest humiliation."
Who should we trust? Great Angelo, with all due respect, or these gentlemen?
Mind you, I'm not appealing to their authority. They're just correct about this point. I'm giving them to you because
Eddington's point was, Hawking's final position has always been, non-theological. He went to his grave knowing that God.
Okay.
To him,
Here
God.
That isn't even true.
America. It says if the universe increases in entropy and disorder with each bounce, the amount of usable energy available decreases over time. This would disprove the idea of an eternal universe or an infinite universe. This was actually looking into here's the exact site. I will post it in the chat.
So to clarify, I brought this up for you, Angelo, because because Risky asked a good question, right? Like, what is your beef with God? Is it specifically like the Abrahamic God? Because it did seem that way, right? Very quickly, you were taking contention with like with the interpretations of like a Christian God and talking about him holding your soul hostage and all these things. But in that, no, I don't believe a God would, care about me and, try and put me in hell or whatever. But this is the thing, right? I don't believe you when you say that you wouldn't care. You would care, or you wouldn't even be in rooms like this, right? Everyone wants to know what the truth is. Now, some people choose to ignore specific pursuits because they may not want to face possible outcomes of that, right? That's really kind of when you get into cognitus, if you then come across that information anyway. Because now you have like the belief you want to believe is true, and then you have the evidence that contradicts it. And I've experienced that. It sucks. So my point to you, man, is like, you should just really think about it. I'm not trying to put you on the spot and expect you to like concede to God being true in some like hostile debate format where people are jumping off the edge of their seat to interrupt and clip the end of what you're saying and trying to fight with you or whatever. I'm just explaining to you, bro, that has nothing to do with philosophy. It's nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with some type of philosophical bias. It's literally just natural law. It's like the core tenets of how this world. I'm almost done. It's the core tenets of how this whole world works, right? Like it's like the first and second law of thermodynamics. It's just how the world works. It's what governs in all existence. And when we actually apply those first two things, it tells us very clearly, bro, very clearly, like something had to put the matter energy here. And so the first law doesn't work. And so when we need a force that's not limited to natural law, to the laws of nature, like if you Google definition of supernatural, it's literally going to say attributable to a force that's not limited to the laws of nature or the current scientific understanding. So,
all right. So Arthur Eddington, by the way, he's a Quaker, and he basically had a very religious opinion about science. He basically said science and spirituality coexist. Hawkins specifically said God was not needed to explain the universe and went to his death without any. There's no evidence. In fact, his 2018 paper on it specifically took God out of the equation as far as the explanation of the universe and everything.
Have you actually read it?
Yeah, I did, and not only that,
no, you didn't.
I'm actually I'm taking quotes out of it right now.
Right, but did you read it?
Brief answers to the big questions after his death.
No, you didn't read it.
So this is the
thing. This is the thing, brother. If you actually read Stephen Hawking's works, what he consistently does is he tips his hat at the creation position being more viable.
He talks about a God. He talks about a God in the what's the text I'm looking for? He talks about a God not as a being, or anything like that, but like the laws of nature. The mind of God is what he talks about, and he was metaphorically talking about the laws of nature, not a personal deity.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he was.
No, you just made that up.
In there.
Stephen Hawking specifically says though, right? What he says is that like creationism obviously provides a sufficient explanation for these questions. And then his goal was to find a way to reason the viability of the alternative position. And that was always his position. Never once did it change beginning to end. Never once did he claim that creationism was the less likely. He said the opposite repeatedly. He was just trying to explain that maybe it's possible you don't need a creator or a God to explain these things. This quote isn't even about that. This quote is just about the beginning of the universe. The quote from Eddington has nothing to do with whether he's a Quaker. It's just about the second law of thermodynamics. But this is what I want to ask you. If the first law of thermodynamics says matter and energy cannot be created nor destroyed, and we have to violate that, right? So we need it to be created. What is the antecedent of creation.
I'm sorry, I have to interject for just a moment, Austin. I apologize. But great Angelo, please check your DMs. After that,
Oh God.
that's all I have to say.
Now you got a chess challenge coming on. But
Yes.
continue
We'll give
on.
you a clue. It starts with C.
Okay. Just to ask it real fast, Angelo, just think about it. It's really simple, right? Like if the first law is saying that matter and energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but we need to invoke it being created, what is the antecedent of creation?
I do have. Yeah.
Go on.
I'm asking you, what is the antecedent
Destroy?
of creation? No,
No.
antecedent, not
Oh.
antonym, but like the necessary antecedent, as in like the requirement, the necessary requirement, the precondition. Like what's the
Something, a
necessary
creator, obviously.
Right. So a creator. And then you agree that if something is beyond nature, then it
No.
is
Beyond
wait,
nature doesn't describe a creator. That describes what you think a
no,
creator might be.
no,
but
no, no,
there's
no, no. I'm
probably
asking
others.
you. I'm just asking you what it means. Like, what does beyond nature mean? Like what does that mean? Like, okay,
Supernatural.
well, yeah, like that's like the definition of super. That's like the etymology of supernatural, right?
Or paranormal, yeah. But supernatural probably is better fitted.
Well, just supernatural. The etymology of supernatural is beyond nature. So, if we need to violate the laws of nature, right, then the etymology of supernatural is beyond nature. The definition of supernatural is attributed to a force not limited to the laws of nature, whatever. So we need something supernatural. If we're going to violate the first law of thermodynamics, a natural law, then we need something supernatural, right, beyond nature. And then if we need matter and energy to be created, then we need the antecedent of said creation, which is a creator. So we literally need a supernatural creator. And there are many additional adjectives, right, that you could throw in there because it obviously needs to be outside of this material universe to then place it there. So it's like external. It's not limited to nature. It's not, confined to time as we understand it within this material universe. So it would be eternal. So we need an external, eternal, supernatural creator that created everything in existence. So don't you agree that that sounds like God?
Your description of it, sure. Let me explain something to you that I have. Here's the two problems I have with a God and why I'm an atheist. Number one is eternal. It's got to be the most boring existence to be eternal and have done everything over and I mean literally an infinite amount of things to do with an infinite amount of possibilities and an infinite amount of time is going to eventually, at any intellect, where I would assume would wear into some form of boredom. I don't find it to be something I would want contained from the very beginning. Any intellect where I would assume would wear into some form of boredom. I don't find it to be something I would want, like go to heaven and be there forever with what kind of, existence that's up there. I don't care. I'd rather have nothing rather than be around forever. Secondly, the other half of it is the fact that an intellectual being itself, what makes us so special, that we can elevate ourselves out as to be the one only existing part of this universe, which you don't even believe in. This is the thing that just amazes me. You don't even believe in this universe, for that matter, or a description of it, or what it does. You just want to have this argument with people who do believe in it, trying to refute it based on all your ideas of an electric universe and
Wait, can I pause you there? That's not true.
I'm almost not quite done yet. I'm almost done, and you can just jump in.
Just
Essentially,
not
not believing what the universe is all about, or not believing about the things that science has come up with, and coming back with science to so-called refute science when you don't even have any belief for it, kind of boggles my mind, and I don't
brother,
understand
that's not true. Okay, that's not my position.
So you believe in a globe Earth and you believe in the science?
What the hell, dude? That's such a false dichotomy. Either I believe in the globe Earth heliocentric model, or I can't I can't accept the first and second law of thermodynamics. Okay, I
Doesn't refute it, by
accept.
the way.
Listen.
When-
I
when you
accept.
finish.
I accept the quote unquote universe as in the entirety of this physical existence. Right. I accept the first and second law of thermodynamics. I accept the existence of energy and matter. And I accept that being the totality of what exists within the material world. I concede to all those things. I acknowledge all those things, right? So my argument isn't some bad faith, dishonest argument that's arguing something I don't believe in. I believe in all of those things, and then the logical deduction combining all of those things is what I just told you, bro. And it wouldn't even matter. Who cares what I believe in or don't believe in anyway, right? Like, you know that what I'm saying to you makes sense. You are uncomfortable with the conclusion of it. That's all there is to it, man. And it's like, okay, yeah, maybe God was bored. Hey, maybe that's why he made people. Who knows? I'm not even trying to say, yo, you need to believe in this type of God. You need to believe in the Bible. How dare you talk bad about God? All that's on you, bro. Like with what I've told you, he could be malevolent. He could view us like an ant farm. He could literally not even care. We could have been an accident. It doesn't even
quick check.
invoke any like specific characteristics of God, bro.
That's true.
Can we
It's a brute
overlay
fact.
like you
Go ahead,
both agree in entropic condition? That's what the universe is in entropic condition. Basically, like it's falling apart. It's going from a state of order to a state of disorder.
Sure.
You guys both agree with that, right?
Yep.
Entropy increase, yes.
Okay, right, yeah.
How was it at the beginning, though?
Well, this is what I find rather fascinating. I'm trying to look for the things that you guys can agree upon. Like the entropic state leads you to believe that there's a condition of like a starting, and like if there's a starting, like if you've got the entropic condition, then you must be leading towards a sort of a state of order to a state of disorder or something, right?
Yes, and we see that
It's
time and time
conditional.
again, right? With batteries, we see rooms getting dusty. You don't even have to touch a room for it to fall out of order, and then we see people die. So we see indicators all throughout our life and experience.
Look, my underlying condition though is that like I don't. Is the world necessarily entropic in that condition? We see the sun giving forth energy. Depends on what you consider to be the condition of the moon. Taking part in like how would you say, like pulling energy out. So there's energy coming into the system, energy going out of the system. I just kind of like, what's the major statement about the fact that there must be a beginning and an end based on this entropy? Where do we see this exactly? Where's the
everywhere?
State?
What?
Because you're all like your room becomes disordered. It's not
things cool off over time. There's a lot of examples.
Yeah,
where
but the whole like the world renews itself. Like that's the whole nature of like the beast at large.
Not necessarily.
wanna-
Not necessarily, because remember, people said that the oxygen levels were much higher in the past. So it seems that if that's the case, and we have a lesser content now, is decreasing, and you can just continue to go down through the list of items.
Yeah, so oxygen is beneficial or malevolent?
What?
Is oxygen, like you breathe you need oxygen for life. Is it like beneficial or like what's a better term?
No, you can see matter converting.
Detrimental.
Well, it's required for life. You take away someone's oxygen supply for 10 minutes, that's brain damage.
Kind of like think about gas and oil and how the energy is used from them and then converted to non-usable energy, electricity.
I am kind of just curious in this sort of idea. I mean, sort of Witsit and Great Angelo were like fantastic discussion, guys. Really appreciate it at large. It seems to hinder down to the notion, though, that there is everything must have a starting precondition, and we are heading towards entropy. And I'm just trying to work this out for myself. I see the world renewing itself constantly, and you guys want to talk about the fact that dust collects on your shelf as a form of entropy.
This is a natural law. this is a natural law. So, go ahead.
God does sustain everything, but it depends if we're talking in the scientific sense. Like I posted a wonderful article from Scientific America that summarizes all the recent papers on the cyclical universe and all of the different, cyclical universe models and how, in like the latest science on them and how they all fall apart, right? So yeah, I mean, they say basically, just to give you a mainstream response, like that the helium is and the lighter elements are converted to heavier elements in the sun, and then they're less usable for work. Then the sun will basically, like, the star will just die out, and then eventually we'll run out of this like hydrogen that will be fueling these stars, and then it'll just we'll just have like a dark out. But in the sense of the earth, I think that it's a little bit different because I do believe God is continuously like supplying us energy. Things cool off over time. Like we can see like that the lava will cool off over time as it comes out of the earth. Now something's obviously continuing the energy, and they say, one day the core will solidify in the earth. Because the heat will basically lose the energy and just like become a solid core in like the mainstream model.
Oh yeah.
I do think
What
God
if
is
it's just
putting
like
energy up with the sun, but
what if it's just like a terrarium and it's just self-sustaining? Because a terrarium can last forever in theory.
well, what's heating the
Enclosed
lava? We
system.
see the lava cools. How do we get new?
Yeah, what I mean is, like, overall, it's an enclosed system. There's no way that you can say that it's not. So when the heliocentrics, they talk about
Well,
space being a vacuum next to this this atmosphere with a gradient, like, I want to know.
There
okay,
could be a
so
tipping point.
we
There
can
could be a
see.
tipping.
I'm sorry, you can go
No,
ahead.
no,
Then
no, no. I'll wait. Go ahead, Taylor. You first.
we can see sediment. We can see erosion happen. We can measure the erosion rates that happen on the earth. We can see sediment building up and getting higher, like at the end of a river. Like for example, if the Grand Canyon was carved out by the Colorado River over time, if that's how we got the Grand Canyon, we'd have much higher sediment layers. At the end of it, but we know that that's not how it was formed, or many of us that looked into it. But we also see the oceans getting saltier because the water is eroding the land to go into the ocean, so we can track the saltiness of the ocean over time. And these would just basically show you that like the earth could not be, like infinite. Stuff like that. You'd have erosion, you'd have like everything would
But you're
basically be
jumping from
leveled out, like
nothing.
the lands and stuff. But it
Like
depends
God
on if you're moving
renews.
tectonic plates. And it's like depending on who I'm talking to, it's gonna really depend on the answer. Both of which
That is
cannot
the
last
like
forever.
larger problem. Yeah, I'm just kind of curious because Great Angelo and I think Witsit, like the larger battle that's been going on, it's just trying to find a way to agree upon the entropy that's going on within the world. I'm just kind of curious as to that aspect. I don't need to distract from the larger conversation being had.
Do you mind if I make a comment on that? That's just something that's in my mind. I'm interested to know on the guy who believes in the traditional Big Bang and evolution model. If entropy is pretty consistent, and we know that we're seeing a degrading over time, and this is how the natural order works, this doesn't make sense in terms of things like evolution, for example. It literally goes against the idea that things decay and
the original life completely goes against entropy because you see things
Let
happen
him
like the
finish.
original life that doesn't naturally happen in nature. Normally polymers do break down and we see them build up, which is completely correct. Go ahead.
So
I'm about to go to bed. I'm really about to go to sleep, but I wanted to make a couple for them. But
I just wanted to hear his response to that, really, and then you can move past it.
Yeah, go ahead, Angelo. What do you think about evolution and how like it's going against entropy?
Evolution going against entropy?
Yeah, like things are progressing, building up over time. Life is getting more complex and building up. And normally in nature, you see things degrade and break down to simpler forms. But we saw things like the DNA code form, like with the original life, and things getting more complex, like the eye, for example. So we see things increasing in complexity instead of breaking down to more disorder and chaotic nature.
I don't think it's going against entropy at all.
Well,
It's
how did
completely
the
consistent with the
DNA
second
code?
law. It's consistent with the second law of thermodynamics. It applies to the total amount of energy in a system, and its surroundings, not particularly individuals. So where you come up with that idea that it's entropy, it's like that's ridiculous.
Well, like polymers and chemicals of complex structure will break down over time, especially carbon-based ones. But you actually see them forming complex structures like with the origin of life. But in nature, even as we see it today, they will usually move like DNA, RNA in the environment will break down to its more basic constituents.
Evolution produces more organized and complex structures, cells, organisms, and ecosystems. Okay. Their local order increases, entropy decreases locally. However, the second law allows that as long as entropy increases elsewhere, local decreases. So
You read that, but that is the answer.
That is the correct answer. Well, I'm
an
evolutionary biologist, so I definitely have an understanding of what evolution does and how it applies to entropy. Just as
you Googled it.
Yes, I googled the answer to give her a concise description of it rather than try to fish it out of my butt after.
That is the answer, right? They claim that
ago.
like it's the same with like a growing plant or whatever, right? Like it may temporarily reduce entropy like internally, but like the net flow overall is still an increased state of entropy. And to answer the other guy's question, like there's endless
biological evolution is driven by energy flows. All right. Everything about it is driven by energy flows, metabolism, consumption of food and energy, and so forth. And
how mutation.
Everything.
Universe.
Okay, everything that applies to it. Don't go electric universe on me. I'm getting tired, guys. I'm sorry. I actually have to teach a chess lesson in about 10 minutes, so I really want to get going.
But look, if you put it in really simple terms, even if you can cherry pick an example of something becoming more ordered or whatever, energy is being used in order to attain that final product. So the total amount of usable energy in the system is decreasing. And there's endless examples, and I heard a couple, right? Like just ice melting is an example, or like the way an engine works, like mechanical usable energy, right? Whatever, like it generates heat. Like one of the primary ways that we engineer is like finding a way to dissipate the heat. You know what I'm saying?
If you put food coloring in a glass of water, it'll dissipate. I mean, yeah, you can see. I did want to read something before you leave, Angelo, and I really have to go to bed. Can I please read this really quick?
Go ahead.
Okay, so here's a really good paper by Scientific America, and it's talking about the cyclical model, the idea of a cyclical universe or eternal universes. It goes over many and cites many different papers and different theories on the current stance, state of the cyclical universe, in scientific community. So I just wanted to read a few of this, a little bit of this paper. Did you happen to click on it and check it out? I tagged you in it in 2 chats.
No, I didn't get a chance. Just send it to me in a DM. Yeah, you have my permission to send it. I want to say first, Witsit,
no, I didn't get to read it. I didn't get to read it. Hold on. Wait one second.
God, hurry, honey, because I got to go and teach.
Okay, me too, actually. According to the theories of so-called cyclical cosmologies, the universe is immortal and going through endless bounces. Although a bouncing universe may experience one or more cycles, a truly cyclical universe has no beginning and no end. It consists of a series of bounces that go back for an infinite number of cycles and will continue for an infinite number more, because that the universe doesn't have a beginning, no being, or singularity. The study that Duryea and Dallow co-authored doesn't rule out immortal cyclical cosmologies. Plenty of theories describe such a bouncing universe in ways that would be difficult or impossible to distinguish from the Big Bang plus inflation model, looking back at Planck CMB data. But a critical flaw lurks in the idea of an eternal cyclical universe, according to physicist William Kenney of the University of Buffalo, who co-authored the second recent analysis. That flaw is entropy, which builds up as a universe bounces. Often thought as the amount of disorder in a system, entropy is related to the system's amount of useful energy. The higher the entropy, the less energy available. If the universe increases in entropy and disorder with each bounce, the amount of energy available decreases each time. In that case, the cosmos would have had larger amounts of useful energy in the earlier epochs. If you extrapolate back far enough, that implies a Big Bang-like beginning with a small amount of energy, even for a universe that subsequently goes through cyclical bounces. If you're wondering how this scenario doesn't violate second law of conservation of energy, we're talking about available energy. Although the total amount of energy in the cosmos remains static, the amount that can do useful work decreases with increasing entropy. And then they say that new models try to explain this. The expansion allows the universe to smooth out, dissipating the entropy before collapsing again. Although this explanation solves the entropy problem, Kinney at his university at Buffalo calculated in the recent paper that the solution itself ensures that the universe is not immortal. I feel like we've demonstrated something fundamental about the universe, says Kinley, which is that it probably had a beginning. That implies a Big Bang occurred at some point, even if that happened many bouncing universes ago, which in turn suggests that it took a singularity to get everything going in the first place.
All right. Listen, I got to run. Witsit, I wanted to thank you for your time. It was enjoyable. We had our moments where we didn't like each other very much.
Yeah, thank you too. And I'm sorry if I said or did anything rude. And I did appreciate
I did say things rude, and I'm sorry about
I know.
that.
It's okay. I forgive you. And I do appreciate the
grumpy.
conversation.
You guys have a good night, and I'll be back later.
Yeah, you too. God bless.
You too. You too. Thank you.
All right, bro.
That was a long quote. I'm sorry, but this I really did. I posted it in the chat, but look, it really does go over a lot of different on this. If anybody wants to reference it, but yeah, the usable energy problem, available usable energy decreasing over time, cannot even be overcome with cyclical universes.
That's a beautiful way to end it.
Why?
Are we ending it?
Well, the show shall continue, right?
Well, no, I
am
just have to go
curious
to
as to why.
Let's keep it going.
Do you think? I am kind of curious. Like, you guys agree upon like a beginning and an end of a universe. Like that's the.
I don't agree with that.
Who doesn't that? Is that Manny?
I think the verbiage. This has been bothering me the whole time. It sounded like a one-on-one, so I didn't want to interject. But the notion of like when we talk about the creation of the universe, I feel like it's always mired by the limitations of language, first of all. But to speak of a time-like process outside of the universe, where the universe contains all of space and time, oh shit, I got a package, just seems a little fallacious in the premise itself. Like, the universe itself as a whole shouldn't be subject to any time-like process. To talk about like its creation seems in error.
But it is like you like okay, you're in and of the universe, and you observe time. What's the problem?
Well, it's just that we're inside the universe.
That's the
Are you
whole
dealing
point,
with a
dude.
package
He wants to work outside the universe, which is metaphysical, supernatural, by definition.
What?
That's
and
not
you can't
science,
just
dude. You can do
say
that
something.
if you want to be religious. It's all good. We can be religious. Go ahead.
I'm saying you can't just say something's fallacious either, right? You would have to actually specify the fallacy. I mean, I'm not sure
not
why.
Fallacious, exactly. I don't agree with the premise. So if we say that the universe is everything, that to me is all of space and time, and all that's within that. So if there's no time outside the universe, there's no outside the universe, right? There's no space outside the universe. So to say that there was a time-like process that brought the universe into existence seems to want to extend time outside the universe, in which case we're no longer talking about the universe, we're talking about something else, right?
Well, this is the thing, right? So for one, this is a whole topic into the definition of time. What is it? Well, would time exist outside the universe? I don't know a logical reason why it wouldn't, but like beyond that, you're placing a material confinement, right, on what we just established isn't limited to a material confinement. Like the entire thing that we discover when properly examining the first and second law is that something that isn't limited to nature has to be invoked. So then to turn around and start, the imposition of like material limit wouldn't make any sense. So who's to say if that supernatural primary source has to adhere to time or doesn't, or whether it does or doesn't operates within time. So then we impose our like limited understanding of like sequential mechanisms being time oriented, and then impose it on that process. But then it still bakes in the assumption, for whatever reason, that time wouldn't exist outside of it anyway, you know?
Does it have to adhere to entropy as well?
Do what?
Does it have to adhere? Like, I mean, you're
no. That's kind of the whole point. Is it doesn't?
Source. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. But so, why do we believe? Like, you guys seem to be sort of generally arguing for entropy being a major cause and causal aspect of both the was it like the mainstream scientific interpretation and also biblical? So I'm just kind of curious as to what's the
like
ultimate...
I guess the whole point is that the entropy doesn't apply, like the or doesn't have to, right? Because like the fact that matter and energy can't be created or destroyed, and that entropy increases, like the entropic characteristic, both of those are like,
how do we know that
natural law? Well, but I'm saying those are just natural laws. Well, everywhere in nature, everywhere that we observe, like you can't, if you could just name any ice melting.
Ice melting,
right?
ice accumulating is the antithesis of that proposition. We have ice forming as well. Ice melting is not. That's not the absolute.
What the absolute?
Well, I mean, so all ice, like if we look at the light. Pardon?
To reverse it requires energy. So if we put an ice cube in a room of room temperature, it's not going to turn back into ice. You understand that, right? It's not going to turn back into ice in that room without applying energy, like a freezer.
Well, actually, no. You need to take energy out of the system in order to create ice. Technically.
Well,
you're aware of that, right?
Energy's putting it into. What do you consider energy? Is it cooling off or heating up or whatever?
Ice melting is what? Too much energy in the system, or
things move
more
towards disorder. Like things move towards disorder, and usable energy decrease over time.
No, but like when you're
like
born,
electricity will dissipate like photons. They don't go on forever. They'll just absorb into something and dissipate. Let's see. Like anything that is heat, it'll cool off to be in the environment around it. Like unless you're like.
And I think they've even found that even down on the DNA level, the telomeres, I think, they get shorter and shorter.
I don't think I don't know if he believes in DNA. So.
But wait, this is what I was trying to explain earlier, dude. It's like the second law. The law applies to the system as a whole. The law applies to the whole system. So even like saying evolution on the biological level doesn't. I just explained to you Okay, so I gave the example of like a plant, right? You can isolate a plant and then be like, oh, look, the entropy is decreasing internally. But it's like that the system as a whole is still entropy increasing. So like to take your ice example, right? You're like, well, ice accumulates. Yeah, but in order for the ice to accumulate, right, it has to dump heat into the surrounding area. And so that heat then creates more disorder in the air and the surrounding environment than the order gained by the freezing water to accumulate the ice.
Why did you say that the plant accumulates disorder throughout the course, like from the time that it becomes a seed? I would have thought that it actually creates order.
That's what I was saying. I'm saying that that's what I said. I'm saying that a plant's a good example of how internally it actually would decrease entropy. So it would decrease or disorder.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I brought that up and say like, so someone said, oh, well, entropy doesn't always increase. Look at the plant. And it's like, oh yeah, because the law applies to the system as a whole, right? So like not just like the localized examples, but the process that allowed for it to say create the energy, right? That itself is in the system as a whole, like in the environment. So you have the sun interacting with the plant and then the plant going through the chemical process and then generates its energy, et cetera. Like the process as a whole, the environment or system as a whole, entropy increases, the amount of usable energy decreases. And when I say the second law, I actually think that the really simplified like disorder explanation, I think it's like pretty well known that isn't really fully sufficient. It's like a gross simplification, but you can really simplify the second law, which is that systems seek equilibrium, and this applies to everything, right? All systems seek equilibrium.
Biological systems don't do that, do they?
Yeah, everything.
Well,
Like,
life
just give
actually
any
goes.
specific
That's what somebody
example.
pointed out earlier. Life goes against natural like entropy. That's why life couldn't have formed on its own.
Agreed.
But no. What I'm saying,
Yeah.
no. I'm saying like all systems seek equilibrium. Does look. If you give any example, give me any example, all the way to the smallest scale, whether you want to reify a model or not, right? It doesn't matter. Like the phenomenon is real, whether you believe in electrons and all that pseudoscientific nonsense. Like just any example, you can give any example, like opening
Batteries
up the door.
will die over time.
Yeah, like heat going to cold. Like if you have the AC on, but you open your door in Florida, you know what I mean?
Like what is the sun? Like what is the what's heating up the bottom of
That's
the earth?
supernatural. I mean, look, we're invoking.
The sun is supernatural.
Yeah.
To some extent, I would agree with you, but I mean,
God
it's
is putting in
natural.
energy.
Really?
I think God is giving life and putting in energy. Like I think He's intervening in our system. I don't believe in the purely naturalistic, materialistic realm with no intervention, personally. But anyway.
But wait, like
Well, then
this part's
explain
confusing
entropy.
for me. Okay, all systems seek equilibrium. Is that in contention?
No, I would say that not all systems. The sun itself is just emitting power and light. Is it seeking equilibrium?
Well,
it
would kind of be special pleading, right? We can't go to the sun, but you would be claiming like an anomaly to all other things, because we can just use anything else that emits energy and say, oh yeah, that system is seeking equilibrium. We'll just isolate what process is being used to generate the energy. We can use like a motor, for example, and like the entire process of a motor is utilizing the fact that equilibrium is being sought. And so the reason that it creates all that heat, for example, and the heat has to be dissipated so that the engine doesn't blow up, right? Like literally the cutting edge.
To some extent, it's more to do with the charge current being flowed through. I mean, it only heats up due to friction, essentially. It won't heat up. Like if you put the wrong current into the motor, like it'll fry itself. Maybe that's what you're referring to.
Well, I'm saying it doesn't really matter. The point is just like the reason that it puts off heat is the system seeking equilibrium. You can even look at like what people call positive and negative charge, and like there's really no positive and negatives floating around in nature or whatever. Really, a system's charging or discharging. One system has excess charge, one has a lack of charge. Whatever, they will quote unquote attract, and really they'll just like accelerate towards each other. But the point is like heat goes to cold, positive goes to negative, right? Magnets will like also accelerate towards each other. So like say there's the same reason that you'll get a shock whenever you touch a doorknob. Like if you wear socks and you scoot your feet on the ground, right? Like and you build up a lot of friction, and then you touch a doorknob, you'll get like an electrostatic shock. And that's because you have created so much excess charge on the surface of your body that it's looking to dissipate so that it can equalize. You have too much charge. Your system now has excess charge. It's seeking equilibrium. And so as soon as it touches another surface, it discharges all that excess charge. Before that, it's still trying to. It's still trying to before you touch the doorknob. It just doesn't have another material surface to transfer to. The reason it shocks you is because it all does it at one time. You know what I mean? But if you scoot your feet on the ground and you just stand there, slowly over time, it'll dissipate into the ground. And the same reason like grounding is so healthy for you. The reason grounding is so healthy, and if you guys have ever seen, it's pretty amazing. Like they've microscopically viewed the blood of individuals as they go and stand barefoot on the earth, and like coagulation or whatever of the blood will all like dissipate. It's like pretty incredible. And people call that dirty energy or whatever you want to call it. People believe in electrons. Doesn't really matter what model you believe in. Grounding is good for you because it's all of that charge that's built up in your body, that excess charge, is discharging into the ground. Same reason that we would like ground a plane. Whenever I worked in an airport, I had to ground the plane before I put fuel in it, or there was like a risk of an explosion. You know what I'm saying? All those are just situations where systems. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's absolutely nothing that you're saying that I would disagree with. I know this.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. And not only that, when we go back to the biology of living organisms, because I think you brought that up, without the input of food, they're going to die. It's just a brute fact. If you just try going on 40 plus more than 40 days, 60 days without food or drink.
Okay,
all
yeah.
systems seek
you need the
equilibrium.
flow through of the charge at that point. So, like Witz is trying to talk about the grounding aspect. You can't have all this pent up energy. You need to disperse it out. It seems to actually be like the fundamentals of it is the flow. That's what you're seeking. You need to make sure the flow's there, because if you if you hem up any of these systems, then
when you guys start talking about electricity, I do have to chime in. When it comes to grounding, what is the purpose?
To alleviate, to create the flow.
Well, my entire point is that it's shifting the system to equilibrium. That's kind of the context. Yeah, but because I'm saying like because the reason I brought this up, all systems, like in my opinion, the simplest, most accurate way to describe the second law, which gets very convoluted, is that all systems seek equilibrium, and in order to do that, they use energy. So like even your body just like somehow getting that excess charge off of it, right? There's energy being used in the process of removing that excess charge, right? Or like if the heat goes to cold, right? That air is moving to the colder region. It's using energy to do that. So like since all systems are always seeking equilibrium, they're always using usable energy to do so. And so then the usable energy is
think
decreasing.
about a flashlight. Like you put batteries in there, okay? You turn the flashlight on, you use up the batteries and the light. There's no more light. Like now that battery, like the chemical energy in there, like has been depleted. It was converted to photons, but then the photons just dissipated, and now you've lost that energy.
Taylor, that's a bit different.
How?
That's the question. Why are you guys arriving at the notion of like we live within an environment in an entropic state at large? Like it's constantly just we're losing organization of matter.
Because if you
both
put
the scientists and the
food
Christians
color,
seem to comply with this.
like if you
Why
put
can't it
food
be
coloring in
renewing?
water, it'll disperse evenly.
Well, that's why I kind of took issue with the
how did you get the
disorder
food
thing.
coloring in the first point?
Huh?
Okay, we're having two conversations at once here. Look, my main sort of antagonism is at large. Like, I'm just curious. I think this is a great conversation to be asked. So, why is there entropy overall in the universe that we sort of, the natural environment that we're occurring? What I see is actually a constant renewing going on. You guys seem to suggest that like we live in a state of entropy and everything's falling apart, like we're smaller beings than that of the past. There's various other sort of things that are going on here.
That is just factual, bro. You're aging and you're gonna die.
So no, but that's my individual, but that's not for the larger system. Like the system at large.
Trees,
I agree with that. Like
get really old and eventually die.
Yeah, but they produce more seeds to reproduce.
Okay, there you go. But
that's
the point
nature
is
of life.
Yeah, they transfer energy over, but that's kind of the point. Now, there could be an external source of energy being input to the system, but that kind of goes back to the point of like a supernatural external source, right? But like everything we observe, like there's not an example. There's literally not an example someone can say right now where the system's not seeking equilibrium. Like there's not one single and I would say specifically all systems seek equilibrium through pressure mediation. Pressure is always mediating. And if you go to the smallest scale where it's like they would say all molecular and intermolecular attractive forces are electrostatic in nature. So the fundamental building block of what holds all matter together is electrostatic. If you zoom in on that, what does that mean? Well, it's like this little like vibrational displacement. There is nothing in the material world that's truly at rest. Like you could sit as still as you possibly could.
Not
you
a problem for me.
Well, this is my point though. Like nothing is at rest. True rest would be true equilibrium, right? And so, like in my framework, that would be the ether. Like if you were to attain true rest, like pure inertia, you would actually revert back into the primary substance, the ether. The reason everything exists that does in the physical world is because it's the ether shifted out of its inertial state, right? It's not at perfect rest. And so even whenever you find something that you would say is really, really, really close to equilibrium, or if I sit an inanimate object on the table, it's like, that's not moving, right? Well, actually, the core building blocks of it is still vibrating and moving. And so literally everything is constantly seeking equilibrium, because in the material world, true, perfect equilibrium is not attainable.
You in at this time.
Dang, at the punchline. The point, the last sentence, right? It's like, all systems are seeking equilibrium at all times, but in the material world, true, perfect equilibrium is not attainable.
Quick question: what do you think of the nature of the moon? Are you like kind of? I'm jumping right,
Rick,
like,
yeah,
because
Rick,
like
that
we're
was
looking
such
at the larger system. No, just let me rationalize this for you guys quickly. The sun seems to be emitting power, right? It's like a, but the moon seems to actually be absorbing it. It creates cold light, as far as I've been able to determine so far. So you've got this state of like entropy, this like taking and giving going on within the sky. I just don't understand why this necessarily was sort of like the whole system at large must be through in entropic state. Why does that have to be? Like, we're looking at a system that we live within that is both giving and taking at the same time. And
that's presuming the
state of
sun's gonna run forever. I know it appears that way. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Perfect example would be like a magnetic field, right? Like a magnetic field looks like it's perpetual, right? Like it's just looping in and out, looping in and out. This is kind of the idea you're suggesting at, right? Like the yin yang of the sun and moon, the overall system, right? Say it's a giant torus field, right? It's like this harmonious perpetual balance that's self-sustaining and just looping in and out, looping in and out, right? That's true. But like if we were to create a magnet, for example, like it would eventually over time gradually lose its magnetization. And
why do you say
question, well, because that's just what magnets actually do.
Not if you've got permanent magnet like attached to another like magnet, do they actually lose magnetism over time? I'm not aware of that.
Yes.
I thought like only if you got one magnet against a ferrous surface, it will lose magnetism over time. But as long as like you've got the northern polar situation aligned, that will almost stay permanently.
No, like even what we call permanent magnets, they're not truly permanent. Like they retain their magnetic strength for so many years for intensive purposes, right? If you buy a magnet and you go grab it 3 years later, it'll still be a really strong magnet, like a neodymium or iron boron magnet. But it's not technically permanent.
Yeah, they
like
naturally,
it will gradually lose.
That's true. They do lose magnetic strength.
I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, over time.
Like, but in what conditions do they lose? Like, I'm not saying that permanent so-called they call them permanent magnets, but they're not so permanent apparently, according to what you guys are saying. The question is though, under what conditions do they lose that? You can't just say like
just standard conditions, right? Because of like heat and like electrostatic charge.
Magnetic domains aligned electrons spin slowly, randomized through thermal agitation, a process called magnetic creep.
But heat's not like, so are you talking about like sort of day to night sort of heat? Not like heat in the sense of like you're putting
opposing fields, shock vibration will misalign domains, thermodynamic links. Well, it's linked thermodynamically because the entropy.
Oh, so like specifically, like if you were going to quickly remove the magnetism, so a permanent magnet, the best example is neodymium, right? Neodymium magnet. If you avoid neodymium from getting in like contact with like electrical charge or like emits heat, it will retain its magnetism for like decades, but it will eventually begin to lose its magnetization.
Permeability. This goes into engineering and biology and chemistry.
And so like if we're in a giant magnetic field, it would have an.
You can extrapolate the notion of neodymium magnets to sort of like the entropy of their magnetic field, and you know it will fall by, and you can extrapolate that to the sky and the full nature of the universe as far as like entropy is concerned.
They do, because if you're utilizing a neodymium magnet, for a purpose, then over a certain amount of time, it will lose a certain amount of its value.
Yeah. And like say that the Earth is basically a neodymium magnet. Dude, it could last for, if you were to extrapolate that, I don't know, 12,000 years. It may would be 50,000 years, I don't know. It's just, the thing is, right, to claim that entropy doesn't increase in a system would require special pleading. It would require invoking like the singular exception to a universally accepted principle. And, I don't believe that this place was created like that.
Life itself is the antithesis to entropy.
True.
It's not, because you're aging, though.
That's actually true.
But you're aging.
Yes, I am aging, but I can have children, and apparently, like whatever the little connections at the end of the DNA signals they're talking about, renews itself. So I'll acknowledge, my consciousness. So I'm going to pass on. No,
The
but
child's a different system, though, right?
New.
Yeah, but the child's a new system. So it's now that child's going to grow up and then start getting older and create another child that's a new system. That's a new biological system. You know what I mean? Just the way that, and that's why I brought up the ether thing, because to me, this really makes it all make perfect sense. It's nothing is truly in a perfect state of equilibrium. You can't give one example, because literally everything that exists, literally everything, right? It has the primary building blocks of static electricity. Everything exists, even the diehard. Why would the sun not be electric? That would be insane if somehow the sun wasn't electric. But I mean, all accessible evidence
the sun is definitely
suggests
electric.
Okay, well,
and it's giving off, but we don't know where the power source comes from.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Even if there's an external power source that we can't see that's always feeding into the sun, that would still adhere to the second law, because that needs the input of additional energy to keep it coming.
Yes. Yeah, but you don't know what the source of it. It may have a greater source than what it's actually necessarily emitting.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying if that was the case.
Of water.
I'm saying if that is the case, that proves that without that greater source feeding it externally, right, that it eventually would no longer have its output. I would say, I personally think that it was built and it has its internal mechanisms, and eventually it will go out. And that's because I have a worldview bias, and it specifically talks about
that's what I'm curious about. Your overarching concept that entropy must be necessary is my concern. How do we know that this world is not absolutely perpetual?
There are other people trying to talk.
Let me just try to get in real quick. Becoming circular. So entropy isn't a necessary precondition for life, for reality itself. It seems to be, right, when we evaluate nature right now with the laws of thermodynamics, right? But what the laws of thermodynamics actually show is that energy, due to its dissipation, right, its gradual decline, both in information and energy, shows that there was an origin point from where all the energy came from, all the information came from. Now, hypothetically speaking, right, the origin of life originally, the way it was created, maybe there wasn't this gradual decline and atrophy. Right. I wouldn't say it's a necessary precondition or even a priori like the laws of logic. Entropy isn't, it's a natural law. Scientific laws aren't a priori. They're not immutable and unchanging. They could change over time. Actually, entropy seems to be increasing, right? With the gradual decline, with every generation, with every child that is born, right? There's compounding genetic mutation. Yes, that child is youthful. It's a baby. But compared to its ancestral primordial counterpart, dude, there's way more genetic mutations in that child, dude. Yeah. So even though there seems to be this refreshment that is going on, even with the relative homeostasis, even with the relative peace that exists in the universe and uniformity in nature, even with that being said, there's still overall a gradual decline of information and energy. Go ahead.
How do you know that? What's the gradual decline?
I can prove it,
we're collecting in technology and knowledge. Okay.
Oh, this is easily proven. Take a battery.
What's easily proven?
The decline of entropy.
No, it's not a decline. Like, okay, increase
ahead,
of
Andrew,
entropy or
just
decline
explain
of
it.
entropy?
Let's hear the proof. Thank you, Andrew.
Batteries.
Go ahead.
Capacitors.
Yeah.
What about them?
Let them sit just by themselves, doing nothing, and they will decline.
Yeah, because they haven't got absolute resistance.
How
They
do
are
they
just
decline?
basically
There's no such things. That doesn't exist.
exactly. So they're just basically bleeding out into the local environment. That's what the
Well, there is
capacitor you're referring to
resistance
is.
value associated with them. So there's no such thing as absolute resistance or zero resistance. Those are
Agreed.
imaginary, nonsensical things. They don't
Agreed.
exist.
I've even heard something similar with helium. They're saying that you can't even store helium for long because it seems to escape.
That one I don't know of. But
Yeah, I heard that recently. It was being. Oh, go ahead.
The question is, like, for me at large, do we live within a constant, like a system that constantly rejuvenates itself? Your references to the fact that you've got entropy is the fact that you will die someday, the degradation of like certain materials over time. I agree with all of that. But I mean, the sheer fact that we create new materials, the system, there's something going on outside of the system that would incur the fact that it's it's rejuvenating itself.
yeah, that's a tough question to answer. But here I'll say this. The most common type of conductor that we use, metal, copper, over time, when we are running a certain amount of current through it, current and voltage, over time, it will degrade. Is there anything wrong with what I said?
How do batteries go out over time if you don't use them? I'm curious.
Where did the copper come from? Where did the gold come from?
I wanted to
You
answer
asked
my
about
question.
batteries.
I was curious.
One question at a time.
How do you charge a battery?
Which one did you hear first?
You, Taylor.
Okay, how do batteries dissipate over time? Curious. Without using them.
Chemical actions, essentially.
They're dissipating because there's no absolute resistance. Essentially, like even the air itself is conducting that electricity out of the battery. Okay.
Yeah, because there's no such thing as zero resistance. They will always have some sort of a resistance to it. And from there, when you have the voltage known as potential and a certain amount of resistance, it means there's going to be a certain amount of degradation associated with the battery or a capacitor. That's a long-winded version of saying that you cannot just have a capacitor or a battery that will last forever. It can't work.
Yeah, inside the system. But again, when you look up in the sky, you see like an anode and a cathode that are literally just flying across the top of the sky constantly.
I did not know it was going to shift to that one so quick. But okay, go ahead.
Well, it's like inside the system versus outside the system. And I don't know what's going on there. Like I attribute that to maybe some sort of godlike complex. I got no problem with that.
Yeah, that's fine by me. But in regards to electricity, people have to understand and try to comprehend what it is. It's everywhere, all the time. And it's associated with the second law of thermodynamics. But how? I don't want to give everyone the answer because I don't know if I actually have the correct answer or other people that have written the answers. Try to research it. Aside from Discord. If you take a battery, I'll make it simple for now. You take a battery, a car battery, a 12-volt battery, a 2-cell 12.5-volt battery. Can you connect a light bulb to it and make it run forever? Sorry, operate and glow.
No. No.
Right. It's correct. Okay, so why not?
But what does a tree do? It's just constantly turning over fucking energy coming from the sun.
No, just
bring it.
I guess I'll just back out then.
Just one point at a time. Come on.
Because it runs out of material as fuel, I suppose, right? The chemical reactions are no longer available.
We're appealing to a notion of like there's something going on outside of the like everything inside the system seems to attribute itself to entropy, but when it comes to the sun, the moon, any of this stuff, like celestially speaking, it doesn't not necessarily have to attribute itself to the stuff going on inside the system, right?
Yeah, but Andrew was trying to ask something. Andrew was just asking a question.
Why do batteries run out of power?
What? Can you repeat
Because
that?
they're seeking equilibrium or something. Like, what do you want for an answer? Because you use too much power? Yeah. What are you saying?
The chemical reactions?
Okay. In your car, if you accidentally leave your, and people do this, I've done it myself, accidentally leave your dome light on in your car, okay? That is using a certain amount of power from your battery in your car, which is rated in voltage and amp hours and other things as well. Why does the battery drain? And
I can answer that one, Andrew.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Isn't it something to do with the coating on the lead that stops the chemical reaction between the something and the lead?
That's a degradation of the battery.
It gets a coating on the lead to stop the electrons getting through.
Well, that's kind of an abstract way of explaining it, but no.
So what's the answer?
Amp hours. It's the amount of potential storage energy.
And once used, it's not going to produce any more amp hours without being recharged.
Correct.
Earlier, whenever I gave a battery as an example for energy entropy increasing over time, you told me that's different. What was different about it?
Who are you asking? Sorry,
Andrew,
Taylor?
you told me whenever I gave the
yeah.
Andrew, I told you the battery. I told Rixky's the battery as an example, and you said, "Well, that's different." What's different about it?
Yeah, battery's not the example.
Batteries, well, there's batteries, capacitors, very similar, but
What if you live inside of a battery?
Wait, I want to hear his answer.
Or some sort of like external charging
Let him
source.
answer, guys. I'm curious myself because I thought it was a valid example.
But what's the answer?
If you have a battery of any voltage, the voltage is called electrical potential. Can anyone disagree?
No.
No, it's electrical potential. Agreed.
Okay. So now there's a certain amount of electrical potential that is associated with this battery, or just stick with batteries. And based upon that electrical potential in which it can put out, let's say it's 12 volts for a car battery, how long could that one battery, make a light bulb, just like a standard LED light bulb? How long can it last?
I have no clue.
That's
How's
not
that
relevant.
relevant,
Like,
Jerry?
sorry, is the
That's not
sun a
relevant.
fucking light bulb? The sun is a
But
light
you were.
bulb, okay? Where is the light? Like, where
Oh,
is the battery of the
oh
sun?
man.
Like
This
being a light
basic
bulb.
shit. Okay. I
What are you
thought I was
saying is
trying
this
to.
basic?
Rickskis, can we put that on for 5 seconds? I just want to hear from Andrew. You told me the battery's different. I said I was giving examples of entropy. You said that's different. But what's different about it? Isn't that also entropy, like energy decreasing over time?
Correct. Yes.
What's different about it?
Well, the sun versus a battery is
No,
different.
we weren't even talking about the sun. We were just talking about like entropy, like heat dissipation stuff. And I said
Well,
like
entropy is not just heat dissipation.
I
It's
said like a
energy.
battery will go out like once you use the photons like in a flashlight, like the battery's gonna run out. Those photons just dissipated, so you lost that usable energy.
Correct.
There's thermal entropy, and then there's order entropy, right? There's two different kinds of entropy. They're both applied though.
Information and knowledge and
So
energy.
you have like
Agreed.
you could have a brand new lithium battery, never used, put it away in storage. Even that brand new lithium battery over time, just sitting there, it's gonna decay. There's gonna be an entropic effect.
Yeah, but why?
And the voltage, hold on. The electric potential will decrease over time, i.e. entropy. You said that that's not like the or what for whatever reason. Why would you say that?
Usable energy over time, like decreasing. Wouldn't the battery and the flashlight still be usable energy decreasing?
Okay. This is very complicated, I suppose, for a lot of different reasons. This goes into biology, chemistry, physics, engineering, and things like that. If a battery,
killing me.
Okay, if a battery is going to be having a certain amount of chemicals, like an alkaline battery, something simple like that, and then you put it into a vacuum and let it sit there, will it contain its charge constantly forever?
No.
No.
The
Why not?
usable energy is decreasing.
Well, you're correct, but
Because there's no
what
such
happens?
thing as a perfect vacuum.
Wait.
I know that.
You're
Yeah.
correct. But what?
You guys are sitting inside the battery trying
But
to
what,
determine what the
Andrew? Like
battery is
I'm
doing.
correct, but what?
No, you and Line are both correct. You both said correct. It will not contain its the entropy value because of the chemicals and the different materials associated with the battery will decay.
Yeah. That's
There's
a good
no way to
example of
stop it.
usable energy, right?
Ask the
Decreasing.
Globers why that happens. They'll say gravity.
Isn't that
I'm
a
just
good
joking.
example
No,
though,
they're not
Andrew,
going to
of
say.
like usable
Guys, you
energy
guys are
decreasing
conflating all
over
so much,
time, just
dude.
like the battery and the light bulb? Isn't that a
Fucking
good
fill my head
example?
in, guys.
Or should I not use that example?
No, you can, because I think Andrew
Because
used it as
he
well.
said that's something different, and I'm wondering if I should take that off my list of examples because I have some written ones.
No, that's a good one.
Yeah.
So, what's
That's a
the good one
classic.
exactly?
Andrew,
Yes,
do you
it'd
think
be
it's a good
good for
example?
tomorrow.
There's too many questions, too many people, one at a time.
What's the good
Is a
question?
flashlight using up the batteries a good example of usable energy decreasing over time?
Yes.
Okay, good.
No.
I'll keep.
One said yes.
Don't
one
play
said
with
no.
me, bro. I'm serious about my notes. Like if there's something
Yeah,
wrong,
but where did the energy come from?
the
Source.
chemicals.
The chemicals.
yes,
Okay,
the
where
source
did
is
the
source.
chemicals acquire the energy
It goes,
come from?
dude. It goes back. That's why Witsit, if you were listening earlier, he brought up the first and second law of thermodynamics, right? The first law states that energy cannot be created or destroyed. So where did it come from?
Transfer.
Exactly.
Right.
So my
And
question
then
is,
the
why do
second
you
law,
believe
the
in
second law.
entropy? Why
Well,
do you
hold on,
believe in
dude.
entropy then?
Oh my goodness.
Go ahead.
dude.
Right.
The
For a
second
moment,
law, right?
hold on
we
a second,
have-
everyone, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, please. Witsit is still here, and he was bringing this up. That was his topic.
He's fine. No, Lion's talking about what Witsit said. Like,
Yeah, I
go
don't
ahead,
want to
Lion.
overtalk Witsit though. When that was his topic.
No one's over talking Witsit, dude. Like, the guy can get in if he wants to. Okay,
I
we can
understand that.
correct the record if necessary. Lion, what were you saying about what Witsit was saying?
Yeah, so this is actually evidence for God. It doesn't have to be the Abrahamic God. You guys don't have to all get irate on me.
Yeah, we
right?
agree. Yeah, cool.
But just understand that the natural scientific laws, right, necessitate a creator, right? If we understand the first law of thermodynamics, have energy created or destroyed, right? And then the second law of thermodynamics states that energy is gradually dissipating or decreasing over time. Not saying that energy is being destroyed, it's just that the amount of usable energy, because it's dissipating, it's spreading out, right? It becomes less and
Where is
less
that
usable
evident?
over time.
Where is that
All
evident?
around this,
It becomes transfer unusable.
Show me where that's evident.
Empirically
We
all
just
around us.
listed examples of usable energy
Dude.
decreasing over time.
No, like the trees continue to grow. I don't know where the sun like gets its energy source from, but the life form that sort of receives that energy and is able to like transcribe it into creating carbon-based life forms and sort of articulating that. That's all self-evident. That's fine, but it is forming. It's not depleting. Where's the depletion that you're talking about?
No, it absolutely is. Right now, reality is fractured. Right, it's on a gradual decline. The entirety of it. We have evidence. Not only that,
that's just your claim.
Not only through. It's not just a baseless claim, dude. We have empirical evidence that genetics are compounding over time. That when you look, dude, everywhere you look, literally everywhere you look. That's why I'm
Is that
trying
order
to give an
or is that
example.
disorder? Is that order or disorder that you're referring
We
to?
have we have both, right? Energetic dissipation of energy and also a loss of order, right? So we have entropy of both in order and in energy, right? In order, we see information that's being corrupted over time, like genetics, right? Now, I'm not saying that you can't reverse the disorder. And you know what the opposite of entropy is? What's the opposite of entropy? Does anybody know what the opposite of entropy is?
Order.
What's that? What's it called though?
Gain.
It's called extropy. A lot of people never heard of it. Extropy. Shout out to Gilly Pong for showing me that. So extropy is the tendency for things to organize or generate, right? Or heal, right?
Entropy versus entropy.
Entropy. Yeah, entropy versus extropy. So that's the opposite, right? The tendency of life to persist, like a wound that heals, right? Or a baby that forms in the womb. These things cannot be explained with any other with anything else besides a creator, right? Now, when we consider the natural
just a
laws,
lavish claim.
When we consider the natural laws, like the laws of thermodynamics, including the laws of motion, Newton's laws of motion, an object that rests, the first law of motion, an object that rests will remain at rest until an external force acts upon it. So when we combine all of the natural laws, right, the only explanation is something external to our reality, something supernatural brought this reality forth. It's the only thing that it makes sense. Unless you have a better example.
I totally understand what you're saying. Okay, so we have something we call a power source, a battery. And then from there, it just sits there stagnant, doing nothing. All right? Then from there, you just let it just do nothing. Over time, entropy will cause a degradation of that battery because of the cells and the chemicals and the metals involved. And there's no way around this, as far as I know, yet. And then
the one thing that defies that is like the nature of the sky.
Let me continue. If you hook up a load to that battery, such as a light bulb, a positive and a negative, known as anode and cathode, it will degrade faster. Does anyone disagree with that?
No, we don't disagree with that. We acknowledge the fact that if you're dissipating a battery over time, it's just succumbing to its ultimate resistance, right? It's trying to resist it, but given that energy just floating through the sky, no one's denying that shit, bro.
What about this though with the sun? And I love how you're challenging status quo. That's what we should all be doing. So it's really good that you're pushing the boundaries. But are we presuming that the sun is an infinite resource, or how do we know it's not even limited itself?
Well, that's the thing that
I would
comes
say
into
it's
question.
infinite, as far as we know.
Like the pyramids are an interesting confounding issue. With whatever the fucking why they were building the pyramids, maybe they were taking energy from the sky, and then that caused the cataclysm of the Noah's Ark and the flooding. I don't know.
So I know you don't believe in young Earth, right? But
It was because of sin.
I'm a believer of and he's absolutely right about that. I'm forced to bring in the Bible into this, right? But when you consider
You're not
life,
forced. You
just
want
6,000,
to,
just 5,000 years ago,
Stop
just
pretending.
5,000 years ago, we had a greater biodiversity on the Earth, right? So I
How do
do
we know
believe that you had dragons living alongside human beings. Now, contemporary
How do
anthropologists will
you
tell you
know that though?
that we're millions of years apart, right? I don't believe that, right? We have plenty of evidence. How do I know that, dude? They're discovering T-Rex fossils with blood still in them, dude. Cartilage, soft
Well,
tissue,
hold on.
I must be coming in within a
They
delay.
are. Who is they?
Well, hold on. Before we get into all the evidence, just lay this out real quick, right? So not only was the Earth way more pristine originally when it was first created, where you had a greater barometric pressure, right? The chemical reactions were more efficient. Hearts that pump blood to these dragons didn't have to work as hard to deliver the blood, the oxygenated blood to the extremities. There was a greater electromagnetic field potential. We actually know this through the fossil record. Geology shows that there was a greater electromagnetic field potential, so that the actual electromagnetic field that the Earth is surrounded by is weakening over time. So for all we know, when they built the Great Pyramids, dude, maybe it was some type of reactor that was tapping into the etheric field. But that field has been weakening over time. I don't think that we could accomplish the same level of potential that they were able to back then, because back then there was way more potential. Because of the entropic effect, things have decreased over time. Now there's less usable energy with Risky. Go ahead.
Okay, so is health based on the fact that you have these systems in flow? It would seem that if you want to talk about groundedness, you essentially need to have a flow of those electrons. They seem to serve some sort of purpose. Just like if you ingest water and you pee it out, it's the flow that allows for the sort of excretion of a deleterious material. You get where I'm coming from?
No, I don't. But
so
hey,
the flow,
I
is
don't mean
necessary,
to say like I know
right?
for a fact. It's not like I know for a fact that we can make a rational inference based off of the fossil record, magma that's solidified over time, that we can kind of see the magnetic signatures in the rock. We have genetics. There's so many different types of sciences, dude, that I could point to back up my premise. But it would, through the inductive process, I can only make a rational inference. But deductively, dude,
even your statement alone, dude, like all you're pointing to is a degradation over your point and experience of time. Like what you can claim of history is like a lack of flow, essentially caused by whatever reason, like an increased resistance, let's say, right? But at the end of the day, if that flow basically comes back and increases, you've got no justification for it. We don't know. These are all things that are happening outside of the system, beyond our purview as like mere human beings. Like essentially, you're deferring back to the cosmological flow of energy.
Bro, like if you look at the fossil record, everything was bigger. Penguins were bigger. Orangutans were bigger. Every crocodile, everything that you see in the world today that hasn't gone extinct, right, was bigger back then. We're stronger. Lived longer.
That doesn't prove a linear path.
No, what I'm trying to explain to you is that we have multiple lines of evidence showing a gradual decline on the Earth, that the Earth is fractured.
Yeah, it's not a linear path that you're ascribing. You're just saying that things go through a flux and flow, and you may be in the like in the low down aspect of the flux at that point. So it may be fluxing down low, and you can't prove otherwise. Because you don't know what the time scale of the cycle is.
Well, we can infer, right? We can make a rational inference based off of the magnetic field, right? It can't be that old. It can't be millions of years old, because at the current rate that the magnetic field is decreasing, is deteriorating, it shows that the Earth is a lot younger.
I'm not saying a million years, dude. I'm saying maybe it could be thousands of years. Like, my question at large is like, why have we got pyramids and no infrastructure to rationalize how they built that? No blueprints for it. So loss of history, loss of information. And I'd agree with you. Like, that's basically your issue of like continuity and lack of information.
Same thing.
Agreed.
Okay, so
but we don't know if
another,
necessarily that's a continuity or if that's just an like. Are you in the low or the up?
Risky. Forgive me for saying I know, right? It's a rational inference based off of the evidence. So the preponderance of evidence, when you include electromagnetic fields, genetics, the fossil record, anthropology, you combine all these different independent fields, they all show a gradual decline, right? Not only in biodiversity, but in order and information, right? Now, even genetics, right? They presuppose the age of Homo sapiens based off of the genetic mutation, the mitochondrial mutation, right?
Yeah, 200,000 years, yeah.
There's a paper by Ann Gibbons, a geneticist. He happens to be a Christian, right? So they disregard her work, but it was a published paper, peer-reviewed. In her paper, she showed that the mutation rate that in the mitochondrial DNA that you inherit from your mother is far faster than they previously estimated. When she recalibrated the mutation clock, she found out Homo sapiens were really only around 6,000 years old, dude. Based off the entropy of genetics. And it's not just human. It's not just Ann Gibbons. It's not just human beings.
Calculation, bro.
You can essentially track the mutation rate over time in the mitochondrial DNA, and then
go ahead.
DNA, you can pinpoint that to the human origin.
So have you guys actually got a
hold on, let Taylor, dude, that's
point
Taylor's
of
specialty.
convergence?
Can you let her repeat that?
Yeah, you can trace the mitochondrial mutation rate over, and then whenever you look at the diversity of the mitochondrial DNA, you can trace, because all women had to go back to one woman to the mitochondrial DNA, which is down through the maternal line. We can look and we see we have mitochondria. This is you get that from your mother, because the sperm does not donate the mitochondria. I have a mitochondria donate. It doesn't get incorporated. It's basically the mitochondria is only from the mother. So you basically can trace that down maternally. And so over time, you like, we know it came from one woman, okay, just due to the logic I just laid out. And then you can look at the divergence in the mitochondrial DNA, how different each of them are from each person. And you can track the mutation rate in the mitochondria. So you would trace that back to about 6,000 years. And the same thing with the Y chromosome, actually. And the Y chromosome, side note, is much different than the chimpanzee's Y chromosome. Y chromosome is the most preserved chromosome within the human race. Like, it's the most similar between all humans. And it is vastly different, over 50% different than the chimpanzee chromosome, which would show that we did not evolve from chimps. But that's just a side note.
Taylor, are you aware that the bonobo's Y chromosome is also as different from the chimpanzee's Y chromosome?
Yeah, it's because God made them differently. They're all different species. Common sense.
Okay, so bonobos and chimps aren't related?
It's an appeal.
They're different species, right?
No, we're not
Are they related? No.
They're
Chimps and bonobos.
Species. They're
chimps and bonobos.
No, they're not related.
We're not related to them. Anyway, back to the
I didn't say
thing.
we. Listen to my words, Taylor.
Yeah.
Are chimps and bonobos related?
In what, a human categorical sense, where we categorize like
fuck Taylor. Listen to
different
my
family
words.
trees? Are we
Listen to
related
my
to
words.
bacteria? I mean, in
no
some
need for
sense,
profanity.
yes. In other sense, no. It depends on what categorization you're using.
Listen to my words. Not talking about humans. Are chimps and bonobos related?
In what sense?
Do they share a common ancestor?
No.
No.
Are they
Okay.
different species?
That'll do for me.
How you gonna show that? How are we gonna show that they have a
hold
common
on.
ancestor?
Let me just finish this. That it's not just
Yeah,
human genetics. It's genetics across the board.
Are you going
So
to claim that they don't?
the mutation rates, right, happen way quicker than they estimated, showing that all the creatures on the earth, not only did they all come around, not only did they all show up around the same time, but they've all been gradually declining.
No,
Yeah,
that's
I
for
don't
city
believe in the declining
that
aspect,
declining one. That declining one is based on city populations. So that one we've discussed
no, they're
in
talking
the
about genetics.
past.
You came in really late.
And he's welcome to come in late. He's fine. Like
No, but he
this is an
didn't.
That one
open-air
that they're declining
conversation.
is like, you're talking about the telomere length thing, right? Where we find our telomere degradation is like too high to be sustainable, and then if you track it in stable real world populations, you're like
He's
on a
talking.
decline.
No, not world population. He's talking about increases in mutation rate over time, leading to the higher like genetic anomalies and diseases prevalence being higher, and so on and so forth. Whatever.
So that's not an issue. I mean, sure, you get sick, we live longer.
So you guys have common agreement around the fact that the universe has a start and end. Is that right? Like you guys all agree, like whether you're a scientist or a Christian, you all agree that essentially there's a start and
The
an
material
No, there might
universe,
be no
yes.
start and there might be no end.
Well, the usable energy decreases
You're a
over
big
time.
banger. You're all about the
I
big
can't
bang.
logic my
We
way to
know.
a single bang because it presumes a state of non-existence. It presumes a thing where there's nothing, and
Well,
yet
usable
we've
energy
never seen it.
decreases
Why
over
would we
time.
presume it to be a default state of being?
Well, it's not
It
a
couldn't
no
be
thing.
eternal because usable energy decreased over time. Look, I'll tag you in this paper I just posted. It goes through all the latest cyclical model research, and it basically concludes that the universe could not have been eternal. And I have a paper that I got from
So you
here,
have a
like
paper
primary
from a
source article. I'll
scientist
tag you in it.
that tells you that it's
Eggshells, go check it out.
non-eternal.
What?
Tell me what it says again,
Like,
Taylor.
Dude, I literally I said I was going to sleep. Like I really have to go to sleep. I have to get up for work tomorrow.
then
But
go to
it says
sleep,
that the
okay?
universe
Like
cannot be eternal because usable
sure.
energy decreases over time. They don't have a model to compensate for this. Go look at this
Sure, I don't-
paper. It gives
that
you
doesn't mean I've
all
got to
of the
agree with
latest
them.
research in the Big Bang, the cosmic loops, and so on and so forth. Science.
Yeah, and some people think that Ganesh has got an elephant head, right? I don't have to believe somebody just because they wrote something.
Well, these
I
are
think
going
that
over
Boffins could
multiple
well be
papers,
wrong
the
about the
latest
start and the
science
end
on
of the
it.
universe.
If you have a
I think they
mathematical
definitely are
model where
wrong.
usable energy can be renewed each cycle, can you please present it? You can DM it to me.
I don't need to
Check
present
it
it.
out
I'm
tomorrow.
just telling you that I don't need to agree because you stuff a paper in my face doesn't mean I suddenly now need to be like, okay, I guess I agree with that.
Well,
Like,
do you believe
if
what
we're
the consensus? I'm just wondering because I thought you did, like personally. Like, do you believe what the consensus of the scientific community says? I'm
I
just
think we're
curious.
very confident about things that are close to us, near, simple, and we can test and repeat. I think when it gets to things
Oh,
like the
really?
start or the end of the universe, that it's largely guesswork based upon what we can see and presuming from
Oh, what about
that.
evolution though? Is that largely guesswork because we can't reproduce it either?
No, I don't think so. I think we can reproduce that. We can reproduce the
How?
blocks of it
When
that
have we
make it a
reproduced
natural.
it? When have we reproduced speciation happen?
guys,
But you moved the goalposts. Like I
No,
think you
I
can watch
didn't.
things.
You literally just said that things that we can't reproduce, like the start of the universe. I asked you, what about
Yeah. I'm not
evolution?
saying
Because we can't
speciation.
reproduce it. We cannot reproduce speciation happening without, manipulating the genetics, like, with intelligent design. We cannot, recreate speciation occurring. By your standard, then you should also be skeptical of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with that. I think that you can see that, like, to me, it's just obvious. You can see populations diverge. You can see that families, the brothers and sisters look real similar,
sir.
but their children don't, and their children don't, and their
Isn't the
children
double
don't.
I hope y'all are hearing this double standard being laid out
What do
right
you mean?
now.
This? What's a double
Because
standard?
literally you
What's
just
the
said,
first
things that we
standard I
can't
said that
reproduce, like the start of the
chill out?
universe. But I just said, what about evolution? We
Yeah.
can't reproduce it. We can't see
You
speciation
can.
happen. And you're like, nah, I think we got enough evidence for that. But I'm giving you mathematical models of
Hilarious.
physical, math and physics models and
About
equations.
evolution?
It says that the universe could not be eternal
So
cyclically,
why are you
and you
relating
say,
evolution
no,
to
I
Big
don't believe
Bang?
the scientific consensus there, but you do with evolution.
Sure, yeah, some science is better than others. What's confusing about that? Right?
Some science is
Phrenology,
better than
shit
others by what
science.
metric?
Well,
Therefore, God.
mostly by the
Evidence.
results it produces. Evidence,
Okay,
yeah.
they can't reproduce
Exactly.
evolution.
That's my point. You can see things about evolution. You can watch things change over time. You move the
When have
goalpost
we
to
ever seen speciation happen?
Taylor. You've got to let me
Give me one
respond. I was just about to say you move the goalpost to speciation. I didn't set them there. I don't think I need to see a speciation event to see that we've got all of the building blocks, right? I can see the sun starting to come up. And
It's an
presume that it
entailment.
will
Nobody
continue.
disagrees with microevolution epigenetics. Yeah, that's well known. What's in contention is the diversity of life and speciation being from evolution, mutation, and natural selection. That's
Let me
what's
ask
in
you a
contention.
question.
Molecules to man.
He's
Let me ask you a
conflating
question.
micro and macro evolution.
You guys just don't want to listen. Anybody can take this then.
You
Of
don't
all
want
the
to be
people desperate
consistent
to
with
not
your
listen.
standard.
No,
They're
let me
just
ask you a question.
They're just going to keep interrupting you, Andrew. Now,
I know, they
Harry's
don't want to
from
hear
network.
it. Here's the question.
You're getting them.
What
Do I
I
need to
don't have to go to
intervene,
bed. I hope one of
guys?
you guys
Holy
can pick it
shit.
up.
I'm just trying to point
Do
out
I
a
need
single
to
question.
intervene?
Single question is,
Guys.
what stops micro turning into macro? I see micro as a small step. Every journey begins with one.
Because they're completely
as
different
such-
mechanisms, bro. One of them's epigenetics, where you're just turning on and off genes. Macroevolution would require new DNA
Novel
and new
genes.
genes forming. Novel genes with novel functions.
Novel
Molecules to man.
species. Novel species, right? Can you show me one new species occurring without manipulating it, like with human intervention through like CRISPR? Can you please show me one new
So
species
can I
form,
see something
even
that
at the
takes millions of
bacterial
years to
level,
happen?
in the simplest organisms?
Yeah, no, that's just not how I expect it to work. You're setting
You
your
don't.
standard
That's
in a
what it would.
weird
That's
spot
what it
and
would
then
have to do.
calling mine a miss. But if you're
It
asking
would
me
have to
why
do
I
that.
put them in a different category, living things you can touch. You can do those. What are those box grid experiments you do on peas where you crossbreed peas? You
That's
can
why we
see.
should be
You
able
can
to see it even more.
You don't listen, huh?
Because you can work
You're
with
real
it.
head up today, huh?
No, I'm
You're just
trying
not
to go to
listening.
bed.
Okay,
I'm frustrated.
go to bed then, Taylor. Don't complain to us about the fact that you
Yeah,
can't
but
go
you
to bed
can work with
because
it, so you should be able to reproduce it anyway.
no,
Thank you.
Taylor,
You can.
like, come
Yes,
on, please.
and we have
Either
never
listen
seen
or
new
go to bed.
species form.
Listen or go to bed.
We've never seen
Don't
a new
stay
species
here
form.
shouting at us about how we won't let you go to bed.
No, you just have to hold your standard like consistent, dude. I hate when people are like hypocrites. That
Where's
really
my
is
standard
my thing
inconsistent?
that I hate the
What's the
most.
inconsistent standard?
Yeah, and then
Sure, me too.
Yeah,
then you
because
seek
you
out
said with the origin of the
hypocrism.
universe, I gave you the latest science, and you said, "Oh, you don't believe that, this and that."
Yeah. Have
Because
I
we can't
described the
reproduce it. But
difference?
then whenever
Have I
I say, "What
described the
about
difference?
evolution?" Then I'm like, we can't reproduce speciation even at the even with microorganisms. You say, "Oh,
Right, but
well,
did I
it
set
doesn't
the
matter."
standard of we can't recreate the Big Bang?
No,
Right? I
but
just said
I
we
would
can't
not.
do
I
anything
would
about
never
it because
expect
it's
that.
so far away. Exactly.
We should be able to
I don't
recreate
set that standard.
speciation.
I didn't set the standard for speciation. Could well be changing allele frequencies. It could well be turn a dog into a
Allele
cat,
frequency
right?
change over
There
time is
could
not
be
an
a
issue.
million
It's like,
different
how do you
things.
get those
No, let me
alleles?
finish, Taylor. There could be a million different ways that you dream up that you should test the other person's theory, but that's not how people reason well. You go, what could test it? Not like, show me a dog turning into a cat until you show me that. It's just not
Nobody
real.
said that though. You can't
Right,
even
but
show
do
me
you see the
evolution at the
difference?
smallest scale.
Do you see the
Show me
difference
one novel
between
gene form with a novel function,
do you see
please.
the difference
Yeah,
between
you
the
can't
Big Bang?
reproduce it. You still
Do you
believe
see
it.
the difference between the Big Bang and testing frog genetic populations? Do you see the difference with that at
The
all?
difference is we can actually work with evolution, and we
Can we
still
do
have
that with
no
the Big
evidence.
Bang?
Yet you believe
So we
it.
can work with evolution. Thank you. So do you see
Yes,
my point that we can do
that's
work with
even more of a
evolution?
reason why we should have more
Thank you.
evidence.
So now do you understand why they're in two completely different categories? Because we can't do any work
Yeah,
at the start of the universe.
but it doesn't help your point
So you
because
do see the point I've been
you
making the whole
can
time.
work with it.
So you do
Therefore,
see
it
the
should be
point or you
much
don't?
easier to
Guys,
provide
guys,
Are you
evidence.
following it?
It should be
You're
much
following
no,
easier
no
to
one.
have
Like,
evidence
is
for it.
anyone guys? Is anyone following at this point? I don't know.
Sure.
I'm
There's a
lost
massive
within the.
difference. There's a
It's
Can you
getting
massive
guys
hard to
like
hear
difference.
you.
organize your rigmarole? Let's
Okay.
go.
If somebody said, I met a guy called Gary last Tuesday and he was a Sagittarius, and I said, how do you know those two things? And one is he goes, oh, he said his name was Gary. And I said, how do you know he's a Sagittarius? And he went, because he guessed it. right? I would go, I've got high confidence that his name's Gary because you used a good method to get there. And I've got doubtful that he's a Sagittarian because you got a 1 in 12 shot of getting that right. And that's about the only way you can figure out what
This is
star
just a
sign
big
somebody is good
deflection.
or bullshit.
What the
He
fuck
just
are you talking
bulldozed on the
about?
There might be,
conversation, not
let me
knowing what he
finish,
was
let me
Big
finish,
red
let me
herring.
finish, let me
Yeah,
finish,
Finish
let me
what?
finish.
Finish your red
There
herring.
might, let me finish, let me finish. There
Finish
might be
what?
a guy
Just
who can
bulldozed
give me
in.
good
Just
answers
nod.
sometimes when he uses good methods, but that same guy might not all give all good answers. As such, the Big Bang might be might be basically like star signs. It might be real hard to figure out the truth. Whereas,
Dude.
is this frog turning into a slightly different kind of frog? Is something we can look at. It is like asking someone's name.
But we
So
don't
it does
see it
make more
happen.
sense
All right,
to
we need.
pay
Okay,
attention to
dude.
some
Yeah, but
signs
we
and be
don't
more
see it
doubtful of other
happen.
signs.
Bring
It's
your
pretty
evidence
obvious.
for evolution, please, that we can
You're just not
reproduce.
listening.
Oh.
Just accept the point and then ask the
No,
question.
we're
Except I've
listening,
made a
dude.
clear
It's
point.
incoherent. It's incoherent.
No,
I
Conflating
okay,
see
what's
the
categories.
incoherent
point that
about
you're
it?
making, but I
Okay,
also
so
don't think you see the point where the fact that it is the fact that we can work with it and there's still no evidence for it, you should be even more skeptical of it.
sure, that is a secondary point you could make. Once you've accepted that your entire argument that I must accept the Big Bang if I also accept the evolution because both of them are basically the same because I can't show you speciation. You're now saying they're vastly different fields. I completely understand why you agree with one part of science and disagree with a totally different field of science.
Yeah, but we can understand how physics and entropy works. We can't work with these things. They've tried to reverse entropy, and they have mathematical models that are testable. They can't reverse it. They can't reverse use.
What
They
has that
can't.
got to do with
Usable
it, though,
energy always
Taylor?
decreases over
Yeah,
time.
it doesn't have anything to do
It's
with
testable that usable energy decreases over time. You can see that in the physical world as well.
it's just a gish
Taylor,
gulp at a certain
Which is
point.
what we were talking about, and I would like to get back to. So, Lion, did you want to
The
continue what you were
Yeah,
originally
I
saying?
do. I do want to go back to what the original topic, right? Which was entropy and genetics, and how entropy actually shows genetically that we are a lot younger due to the mutation rate. That's what we were talking about. Then somehow we got into speciation, and he's pointing to genetic flexibility, i.e., adaptation or microevolution, for being evidence of macroevolution or speciation, which is not. There's just because a creature was created to be robust and resilient in an environment, have genetic flexibility, right, where it can the body due to certain
That's human
environmental
creation.
pressures, due to environmental pressures, can then have certain genes be expressed, right, changing their morphology. That's not evidence of speciation, dude.
Hey,
That's
Lion,
what we're
have
trying to
you
explain to you.
That
have you
evidence
heard
you
people
gave of
say
not
that humans
speciation
could
may
have
well
like?
be evidence of not speciation. Like,
Have
it's
you
not
heard
my evidence of
of
speciation.
people talking
You
about like
gave the
how
evidence and
humans
then I
could have
did it.
existed forever? Like, how do you know we weren't just always like this forever, and the way it is now isn't always how it's ever been? I think
Just
there's a
seems
few people that were
unlikely.
kind of putting that
That's something
forward.
Risky would say.
That's
Well,
just
that's
Yeah,
seems
well,
the
that's why
unlikely,
you
right?
brought
underlying
up like the
question I have. But
mitochondrial DNA.
you guys are just being rude and talking past eggshells. It's just peculiar. Why are you doing that?
Well, because he came in and was changing the point. We're going back to like entropy. Can this be eternal universe?
I think it could be. That's more
No one's
probable to
changing. No
me.
one's changing the point.
Here's a fun
Usable
one
energy
that you would
decreases
agree
over
with.
time.
Here's a fun one you'd agree with. If you use Bayesian reasoning, you must say the probability the universe is 13.5 billion years old is close to 0, and the chance that it is orders of magnitude larger is nearly 100%. And I can argue to it like 6 different ways, but the main one is every other time we've tried to guess, we always get it way too low. Then a bunch of other guesses agree with that guess. And then suddenly we develop a better tool, a better telescope typically. And suddenly it jumps up by an order of magnitude. And we know that happens every time. And its current age was set by the last telescope.
That's because they keep changing the inference of the rationalization of why they come to the determination of the time period. Okay. And it's all founded on this like calculation that you're referring to. It doesn't actually mean the universe is growing older, right? It just means that we're inferring something different.
They say it's expanding too. But I wanted to apologize. Sorry for getting frustrated. I'm a little tired. I really will go on mute now. And I've had a fun convo all night. Thank you guys.
Yeah, me too. That was good fun.
Thank you,
Despite
Taylor.
me getting heated.
Actually, can I throw one up? Well, there's a bit of a chance there. Earlier line, Zion, sorry to seem like I'm doing more, but you mentioned entropy and negative entropy, which is neg entropy. You seem to conveniently neglect syntropy. another term used for biology systems or theory of what is negative entry. And you said it was only neg entry. You actually included that. So syntropy, mate, again, you seem to have omitted a reasonably glaring detail, which is a bit of a standard for you, mate. So perhaps due diligence in future when explaining things to avoid confusion. Thank you.
I'm glad you did mention theory, because the good thing about entropy is it's not a theory, it's a law.
Syntropy. Syntropy is the opposite of entropy, but there's negentropy as well, which is a what is it? What's his name? Schrodinger theory. But syntropy, you neglected that, and that's specifically for biology too. And there you go. Someone's just brought it up.
Well, thank
That's
you.
a good one to
So
know.
we have
Yeah, thank you.
entropy. No, he's right. We have entropy, extropy, and syntropy. Cool, dude. So we have energy and order, right? So the tendency for things to become more complex or self-organized, right? You could consider that syntropy / extropy, because it requires energy.
What is extropy? I've never been able to identify what word you're actually saying.
Extropy.
You're talking about EX trophy?
Tropy. Yeah, I'll find extropy.
I'm getting a bladder condition when I try to find this.
Extropy is a metaphorical concept representing the extent of systems' intelligence, functional order, vitality, and capacity for growth, acting as the opposite of entropy, disorder, or decline.
Okay, you want to spell it for me then? Thanks.
Yeah, EXTROPY.
It's in chat. Syntropy, SYN.
So we have extropy and syntropy to consider, right? Aside from
and negentropy as well. But SYN, not SCN or whatever that the first one was. I've now put in SYN, SYN, Sierra Yankee number, or whatever. Syntropy. That's like a biological term, though.
November.
Yeah, synergy comes to mind, something similar.
I had to talk to the insurer today for my big truck, and the guy was like, "I am from Switzerland," and we both vibed over both doing the radio alphabet to one another.
You know what's amazing about Switzerland? They actually put the cross of Jesus on their flag, and it's, I think, the only flag in the world that's square. Is that
interesting? Yeah. Is that Jesus, that cross? I just assumed, I'd never thought. I guess it is, yeah.
Deep roots to Jesus. In fact, a lot of the European nations, England, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, it's amazing.
Well, it's not deep roots, it's newer roots, because deep roots would be animism and paganism,
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. But I'm not sure if the flag ever changed. But yeah, maybe they did have banners prior to that.
Well, the Danish flag is one, if not the oldest flag in the world. So Switzerland could not be older than that. And then the Danish flag was found like in 1300 or something like that, 1400.
That's fun.
Yo, he mentioned Bayesian reasoning, and it reminded me of a study from let me see where it's looking. At the University of Basel, geneticist David Thaler. When you said Bayesian, remind me of Basel, University of Basel. There's a geneticist, David Thaler, discovered that virtually 90% of all animals on Earth appeared at right around the same time. More specifically, they found out that 9 out of 10 animal species on the Earth came to being at the same time as humans did. Quote, "This conclusion is very surprising," says Thaler, "and I fought against it as hard as I could," unquote. Mitochondria generate energy for the cell and contain 37 genes. One of these genes is the COI gene, which is used to create DNA barcodes. Anyways, I could keep on reading, but yeah, go look into that study. David,
I'm sure it debunks evolution.
Nice one.
Yeah.
Well, it's not that it's a big fucking monkey wrench in the gears of evolution, because if 9 out of 10 creatures on Earth all appeared at the same time alongside human beings, right? What caused that emergence?
And what that's saying, trilobites didn't exist and Tyrannosaurus rex didn't exist. You've got a study that says that things didn't exist millions of years before humans.
I'm saying
I don't care if other animals came
ancestor.
into existence at the same time. Sure, cows and stuff should have. We've got domesticated animals. There's animals that look the way they do because humans got here, right? Well, they're not the great aurochs anymore. If you say other animals got here at the same time, fine. Particularly around farming, even more fine. 6,000 years ago was bang on when it should have happened. But if you're saying other animal, that's not important. If you're saying other animals didn't predate humans, that is important. Is that what you're saying? Which one? Which one of the two is it?
Yeah, I'm trying to explain to you that virtually all animal species on the Earth, right, came about at the same exact time, meaning that they weren't divergent species that evolved from a
what? You got a study that
ancestor.
says all species started at the same time.
Yes, dude. Yes.
Wow.
Hang on. All species, all extant species?
Incoming Nobel Prize, guys.
Old species didn't exist.
This is a massive genetic study reveals 90% of Earth's animals appeared at the same exact time, dude.
That doesn't. No. It's extant, and that is like sure during the last glacial, like whatever. If things turned into a kind of what their current form around however long ago. No big deal, and it's only 90% too, which is no big deal because it could be done by biomass or numbers of animals or numbers of different species. There's a bunch of different ways to do that. It'll yield wildly different answers, but it's you need 100%. 10% doesn't get you. 10% says are older than 6,000 years. You've got a study that disproves that the Earth is 6,000 years old.
No, dude. We have multiple genetic studies from multiple geneticists. When you combine the studies regarding the mitochondrial clock, that's not exclusive to Homo sapiens, right? That mitochondrial clock, the way that you date species, right?
Yeah.
When it's recalibrated, it not only is it a lot younger, not only is it
who recalibrates it? Is it creationists recalibrating it?
The geneticists.
Yes.
Based off of the evidence, not just ad hoc, post hoc rationale, dude. No, based off
a competent person who gets good results finds it, or a creationist uses the same method to get a very young one. No, show us. Sorry,
resisting the truth.
Show us.
Show
us it, because we think the method's wrong. We want to check the figures. Yeah. That's a very reasonable request. Let us check the figures and show you where you've made your error, because you are wrong categorically. We know it. You don't.
There's no way a sensible biologist is saying old species didn't exist.
Landmark new research that involves analyzing millions of DNA barcodes has debunked much about what we know about evolution of species. Now, you guys can deny
rather than read it line.
Like, wouldn't hands be good for cows to have?
It's true.
Yeah, post it, don't read
sore. All right, you're up.
They could milk themselves.
That would be so gross. Imagine walking into the milking shed, they're just still sitting there.
What are you looking at here? Hey, I'm busy.
I'm sitting on their hind legs. Some of them are hunched over.
Either way, I'm at my destination. I'll continue, guys, in like 10 minutes.
That's very good. That's funny. Snacks. You're going to blue ball us on this study from biologists that said that no species were older than
I posted a link. I'm not sure if it's that.
I'm
hoping it's the right one.
Okay. So the fact that it's talking about DNA barcoding tells me that it's only looking at extant species.
Yeah. That's kind of what you expect. We've wiped out a bunch. We've caused a mass. Yeah, but we've caused a mass.
I wasn't including extinct.
Right.
But that's what the whole question was. I already said, if it's saying that current species all roughly got here at a similar time, went through a bottleneck, fine, that doesn't tell us anything. The only thing that's interesting if they say that old species don't exist. We pre-bunked this, right? We called what was wrong with this before you showed it to us.
So it was in the fine print, eh? All along.
Just
hidden right there in animals. Considering 99% of all known species are extinct, you based a species for God on 1% of the overall pool. Dude, that is a really bad example of due diligence. You have deliberately distorted that story to promote your narrative, as all God botherers do. That's why we don't believe in the Bible.
Obviously, you haven't read the paper, dude. You don't think they considered extinct species included in the fossil record? You don't think they considered that in their journal, dude? Come on, man. Use your noggin.
Yeah, how are they getting DNA barcodes from extinct species?
Yeah.
No, I'm saying you don't think they considered the extinct species. Not that they took the DNA from the fossil record. I'm not saying that. I'm saying they considered the extinct species. Even with that being said, with that considered as a factor, all
your claim
9 out
was
of
that
10
all
animals on the
species
earth
came
all
into
came about at the
existence
same
at the
exact
same time.
Not based on not through speciation or divergent common ancestors or anything like that.
Okay. Your claim was that all species came into existence at the same time. All right. All extant species, roughly the same time. Yeah, sure. Maybe. But who cares?
Yeah, that doesn't tell us about whether we evolved or whether there were previous species, right? You're saying your bold claim at the start was all species are only 6,000 years old, right? Which should be the only things that have living things that have ever existed. The oldest of them is 6,000 years old. That's the only claim of yours that holds any water and makes any ground for your case. And your own evidence denies that.
Followed by the accumulation of larger neutral diversity during a population expansion that began approximately 100,000 years ago.
And it doesn't. I don't even like it. It could still hold all to be true, and the biologists are wrong. But it would just you'd have to already guess that if it's in a biology paper that this guy isn't saying old species don't exist. He just wouldn't get.
I'm going to go make some dinner, people. Oh, Taylor's gone. I haven't spoken to Taylor about her friggin' theodolite stuff yet.
I could see why she bailed out. She knew
I did tell her to fucking listen. Sorry. But I asked 3 times. I said, are chimps and bonobos related? And she kept saying, no, humans and chimps are not related. I'm like, listen to my fucking words.
The answer to your thing was yes, and I posted a thingy in the thingy about it.
Yes, they are related. Because there's examples of them interbreeding. And that's usually the creationist.
So I'm sure
they do. So do chimps, actually.
Swing at a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to make some dinner back shortly.
What are the differences? Like, what? So they interbreed? How is that proof of anything?
Ruhif was looking for new things to research. Because they're 2 different species, it's quite kinky, you see.
Yeah, I know, but like horses and donkeys get together, and you call that a mule. But I mean, are we presume that they're fertile?
Well, they can't breed. They're actually neutered, aren't they? A mule can't have baby mules.
Yeah, no shit. So why is this monkey and the chimpanzee or the bonobo like they're fertile offspring or not?
Oh, that's for Rui, I guess. He knows more about it. That's his field.
So I'm a bit confused here. Is the claim that a bonobo is not the same species as a chimp?
I think they're speciated, yeah. They're considered speciated just because they don't interbreed. There's a bit of a debate about don't versus couldn't. So like Great Danes and Chihuahuas don't interbreed, but that doesn't mean they couldn't. It's just sort of physical thing that like it's depends which way around you want to go with a Great Dane and a Chihuahua, but you're going to come up against difficulties either way. And that's somewhat the same, I think, for bonobos, same as it is for Australian dingoes. There's a few different species where it's like they probably could create viable offspring with this other group, but they don't currently. So they are on a speciation trajectory. So there's a sort of question of when do you consider them a new species?
Well, wouldn't it? What do you mean? When do you consider it a new species? We never had an example of this before. Just because one group doesn't mate with another group, like you said, doesn't mean they can't. So why would you jump to the conclusion that speciation is taking place?
Well, but does it make sense to you, like that? Like, let's say you and I are brothers, right? And our father says, you know, mate, you get the west side of the range, you get the east, and one of us gets a lot of rainfall, and the other one goes to live on the coast, and the other one lives inland in farms, and he gets short and works during the day and becomes really stocky and feeds mostly on veg and becomes quite different, right? And you go to the coast and you become like tall and handsome and you got like nice hair and a smooth body and you swim real well or whatever else, like that you would start to look different after like 5 or 10 generations. And then the only question you ask is, what about if it was a billion generations? What about if in a billion generations, yours and my, billionth grandchildren still haven't banged? Could you imagine them being so different that they just couldn't anymore? They just wouldn't. They might make a being, but that being would probably be infertile. Like a donkey and a horse, just they can make a mule, but the mule won't have a baby. And I can imagine that. That doesn't seem that weird to me.
But you've got to believe that one species can turn to another species in order to play that game that you're setting up there. Like,
no, that's what I'm describing.
No evidence. But what I'm saying is, if we've got no evidence that one species can turn into another species, then this is just a sort of theoretical thought experiment if evolution, natural selection was correct. Like, I suppose I'm missing the point of the comment. What's the point?
Well, the point is, could speciation occur? Do you get the idea that you and I could be brothers and then billions of generations? If you just accept for a second that billions of generations could happen, that if we went to vastly different areas, the environment was different, the pressures were different. Maybe one of us was hunting and one of us was farming, or whatever might be happening, right? I just start eating all fish out of the sea. Constantly I'm in the water, right? Start spending 30-40% of my waking day in the water, and you do not know how to swim, right? Could you see a future in which those families got so diverged that they couldn't make viable offspring with one another again? And my answer to that question is yes, I could. It would take a lot of them, but sure, yeah, you could get so different you didn't make babies. That seems obvious.
No, it doesn't seem obvious. It seems like rhetoric to me.
It doesn't seem like a sort of at a gut level it kind of makes sense?
No, because we have no evidence that one species can turn into another species.
But you're not responding to the point. You're not responding. You're just going back to like, but I don't agree with the conclusion. But you need to say,
you're asking me. You're specifically asking me, does that seem reasonable? And I'm giving you an honest example. No, because we've got no evidence of one species changing.
Sure. So what you would say is, even if it was now a billion generations of my fishy people, my fishy family, and your farmer family, after a billion generations, where I would guess I would have webbed feet, I would have eyes that dictate.
This is where it becomes ridiculous.
Why wouldn't I change? Why wouldn't I change?
You only believe that.
But we see people change in a couple of generations. We see epigenetic changes. We see if your diet changes, you suddenly get a lot bigger. So yeah, you've got to imagine billions of years of malnourishment. What does billions of years of malnourishment look like for one group versus another? I'll tell you, one's going to be fucking huge, and the other one's going to have gotten as small as it possibly can.
There's going to be no webbed feet forming. A human doesn't have webbed
okay, so let's just say size difference.
But,
do you accept there will be a size difference?
Size, of course, epigenetics. I'm very, very aware of what's possible in epigenetics, but I'm
let's go with epigenetics.
Very aware. I'm also very aware that there's no change to the DNA, and effectively they can look completely different over short periods. We can do it in a lab, but they're exactly the same species still.
Okay, so let's say we get so different in size that my fishy people, because we start getting so many free nutrients that are all flesh, whereas you have to farm for grain, which is worse. So I get huge, and I spend, the only way to get huge is to be in the water. So I'm still a human, but I have to spend most of my life in the water. That's the best way to get huge. And I'm really, really good at hunting. I can kill orca. I'm good at that, right? I'm still a human though. But let's say I'm a human, but what's the biggest size difference there could be within humans? Because we've dug up bones of humans that are like 3 foot tall, 2 foot tall, right? So could you get really small if you were really malnourished for a very billions of generations? And me on the billions of generations of lots of food would now be massive, right? As big as I possibly could get.
You could
Could
get
we then not
diversity
bang?
within the species, yeah.
Okay, could then yours and my children just not bang? Just mechanically, we couldn't get it to work. My fishy family had massive fishy dicks, and your daughters just
nice.
Right? That it was like twice the width of their own.
Theoretically, yeah, a scenario like that potentially theoretically
You've now got a new species.
could happen. You don't have a new species. No, you don't.
Yep.
You don't have
That's
a new species because no, it's not. They'll have the same DNA. Now
Fine, but they're now new species.
There are humans today whose dicks are too big to fit in certain women. Are they a different species?
Sometimes I feel like I am. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to sidestep that.
Sorry?
You have to sidestep that because we have that today, and they are not a different species.
Right? But what we're saying is not some people of the species mechanically cannot bang other members of that same species. What we're saying is some members of group A, none of them of group A bang and produce offspring with none of group B. For whatever reason, they can't get to one another. There's a mountain in the way. They're too big. Anything happens that they cannot bang one another anymore. And now exactly the same slight gradual change that after 1 billion years made one too big to bang another could happen to any other part of their body. Their hands could grow, their fingernails could grow. And you just have to say, okay, they're already another species. So speciation now has occurred. You've now agreed that a speciation event could happen. You've got no logical problem between a family diverging so much that they cannot bang anymore. You're saying they're going to have the same DNA. I'm going to say, like, fuck they are. One's massive and has a massive...
Doesn't matter. They're still going to have the same DNA. All that's going to happen is one of those groups is going to hit a genetic
How are you saying
bottleneck.
they've got the same DNA? You've accepted they're vastly different sizes. How could they
It
have the same
doesn't matter because
dude,
in epigenetics...
If they have the ability to reproduce a viable offspring, it doesn't matter how different their size is because you could artificially inseminate them and it's irrelevant.
Right,
All you're talking about is the genetic, how would you say, like, compatibility is the issue, and your size of your member versus their like reciprocal sort of member is got nothing to do with it. This is purely to do with like genetics.
Yeah,
so
and there would be a woman from Group B eggs. There would be a woman who would be able to handle all that dick. Some of these women have got some big. I'm not going to say the word, but it wouldn't get to a position.
Big flanges, okay.
But it wouldn't get to a position where not one of them would be able to. That's they're quite flexible.
It's not even relative. Like you could just extract that DNA sequence or the sperm, the seed, and put it into someone else. Like despite the fact that the member cannot fit, doesn't mean that the genetics are not compatible.
The DNA are different, yeah. Because in
epigenetics,
the DNA doesn't
the speciation
change.
event's already occurred. What you've already occurred is a thing that you're right. You guys are right. Sorry, I should start by acknowledging what you're saying is right. Is essentially once you have it, you still could produce viable offspring. It's just mechanically you couldn't. So I could do IVF or whatever and get the bigger female to carry the baby and blah 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 blah. But the point I'm making is you've just diverged morphologically. Just put aside this whole thing of like allele frequencies and have we ever seen that? Yes, we appreciate that.
Okay.
You've just now got so different things that they're going to continue to get more different. That's the point. Once it would take IVF to bring them.
You got to show that.
Well,
you got to show that in the world.
But here's what I'm showing you.
Let me explain why.
Here's what I'm showing you.
You're deviating to imagination at this point.
You keep using genetic flexibility to prove speciation back revolution. You keep running back to square one. Yeah, you could have, for example, you could have morphologically completely different genetic expressions within the human race, human beings, right? The one species, Homo sapiens, right? You could have a midget, 4'11", versus, you know, one of these African goddess, or not goddess, but gods, right? That are like muscly and 6'7", right? And then they could not reproduce. Let's say they couldn't reproduce at all, right? Because their blood types are so different, right? Does that make that other midget a different species? No, it doesn't. Still Homo sapien.
Sure,
Just because he can't
still,
reproduce,
no,
even if
you
they
missed the
couldn't
point I just
reproduce.
made. Sorry, the reason I got to clip you on that is you're still repeating against the point I just made. They're still part of a species that can, right? They still belong to a larger pool of people that those two individuals can't, but now you just need a second cousin to bang and you're still in the same species. The point I'm making is you've got a species A and a group A and group B that cannot do that. There is no, you're not accepting that part of the analogy, and as such you aren't testing it. The point I'm making
I am
is
accepting that. I'm
everybody
granting you
here
that.
is default agreeing.
I'm granting you that these two individuals, right? You got a female and a male. The male is 7 foot tall. The female is 4'8", right? The female is of Irish descent with freckles and red hair. She's a ginger. The male is an African god, right? Humongous guy, large penis, right? Even if you were to nut in her, she's not viable, right? She can't have viable offspring with that man.
Yeah.
Does that are they different species now?
I just said exactly that. You're not listening, man. I'm saying that man and that woman belong to a larger group, that those two same people that can't bang, their cousins could. As such, they still share genetic material. It's still, you can't get too far in one direction. So he's capped out at 7 foot, right? And she's capped out at a certain lower height. Well, actually, like you're capped out at a certain lower height, right? There's no 5 centimeter humans, right? What belonging to the species means is you're kind of stuck in a certain wavelength where you can still keep your organs all look the same and whatever else. So if the point I'm making is you keep picking where you're like, this guy, if I can't bang Stacy, then we're pretty much different species.
Come on, dude.
You know, it's not, you're picking one person with one other person.
Bring it in, dude. Bring it in, dude. What's your point? Bring it in.
I'm making the same point again and again. You keep picking people that belong to a larger gene pool that do intermingle. I'm picking two groups completely strong and capable of intermingling with themselves, are no longer able to intermingle with one another. You keep dodging that point and asking about one person banging one other person.
I'm granting you that.
You're not listening. Your question doesn't make sense.
I am listening. Stop projecting, dude. I am listening, right?
Oh my God.
I'm granting you that they can't reproduce any longer for whatever the reason, right? They can't reproduce.
No, that's not my point. That's not my point.
If reproduction is the biggest factor, right? The biggest indicator for speciation. Well, I'm showing you within the human population, right, Homo sapiens, that there are couples that cannot have viable offspring. Are they now different? Is that evidence of speciation?
Oh my fucking God. I know
obviously
your question.
not. So I'm bringing it down to absurdity.
I've already answered your question. You're not listening.
That's obviously not the case.
You're not listening. Aren't you curious about what I mean when I say you're not listening?
Dude, you're not listening. No, you're not listening. I'm granting you that.
You're not listening. I will steelman you. You failed to steelman me. Your point is wrong.
It's a big red herring, dude. You have no point. Go ahead. Try to rebuttal what I said. Go ahead.
So what your point is if there are two people within a group that can't share genetic material, aren't they a different species, right? So a massive guy and a tiny girl, right? Aren't they a different species? That's your point. Is that correct? That's your point?
No,
if I steelmanned it correctly?
The reason I brought up the drastic difference in morphology because you were also pointing to morphology earlier. So basically, I used one example.
I know I'm not asking why. I'm asking if that's a steel man or not.
I killed two birds with one stone. They could be the same height, right? That doesn't really matter. What I'm pointing out is a drastic difference in their morphology, not being a reason for speciation. Not only the drastic difference in their morphology, but also the fact that they can't reproduce isn't evidence for speciation. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. That's why I was trying to say I steel man. That's the point I just said, right? So you're saying this guy, for morphological reasons, for any reasons, isn't able to do it, and that's not evidence of speciation. And I feel that I've steel manned your point, that I understand it, that you didn't correct me just now. You just added to it. You went, yeah, that's what I'm saying, and these other things. I'm saying I've already responded to that. You think what I'm saying is, oh, these people can't breed, and that's why I'm bringing this point up. It's not about that they can't breed. It's that these people of an entire group A, like, so there might be 100,000 people, there could be 1 billion people in this group A, and group B could again be 20,000 people, 50,000 people, 100,000, any number of people. All of them can bang one another in group B. All of group B can bang all of the rest of group B and get favourable offspring from it. And all of group A can bang all of group A, but none of them can bang one another and produce viable offspring for whatever reason. That's the point I'm making, which is why I'm trying to show your example about one guy who is among group A, not banging somebody else from group A that he
It
could
doesn't matter.
bang,
It
but their
doesn't
cousin.
change. It doesn't change just
Oh,
because
you're
you
not
now
getting it,
you've moved from individuals to a group.
Yes, of
Doesn't
course it
change
does.
your point, dude. You could have in Papua New Guinea,
It's
you
about
could have
banging
a whole
pools.
village. You could have a whole village,
about
right, of midgets,
gene
right?
pool.
And then you try to mate those midgets, hypothetically speaking, with a whole town in
Little
Ireland, right?
people.
And they can't reproduce. They don't have viable offspring. Does that mean that now the midgets in Papua New Guinea are different species? No.
Little people.
No, the answer is no.
If they are never able to, if there are people in Papua New Guinea who, if it didn't matter whose semen you gave them around any other group outside of Papua New Guinea, they weren't able to have children, then yes, you would have found a group of people in Papua New Guinea who are not humans. They're different species.
Eggs. No,
definitionally
listen.
so.
What you're describing would be
Like, it's
if that's
debated that with Homo
theoretically possible.
florensis.
Eggs.
Sorry.
Are you listening?
Sorry,
Can I jump in?
Yeah, sorry,
So what you're describing is genetic bottlenecking. So in your thought experiment, one of those populations, probably the smaller one, would end up in a bottleneck, and that population would start to shrink. But the biggest and most important point to make is that whatever epigenetical changes would have taken place is reversible. So in the same way, these guys could go and rejoin and change their environment, and within a certain amount of time, those changes will start to even up. So whatever epigenetical changes you're describing, no matter how extreme, that give like a physical block to being able to reproduce, they're all reversible.
That's the claim. That's what we're trying to test. You're just claiming that out of nowhere. But you would.
No, I'm sorry. That's not a claim. That's not a claim. That's a fact. That's epigenetics.
I don't even know if I'm audible, but if I can just say, like, real quick,
sure.
You guys were talking about earlier, like, species that wouldn't necessarily co-procreate or what have you, that could, or that they wouldn't necessarily engage in that. What I'm suggesting is, if they do for a little bit, maybe there's a fluidity back and forth, maybe like, times of great famine, or a crazy wildfire decimates the entire environment. Maybe this kind of thing does happen, but after things kind of return to normal homeostatic balance in the environment, maybe they go back to their normal situation. But there are a couple offsprings that kind of retain like some kind of refreshed linkages to these early bonds, I guess, in the genetic tree. What do you think?
Yeah, like it just seems more probable. Yeah,
that's reasonable, but it doesn't mean speciation. Like one life form turning into another life form.
But so this is what's interesting. I keep showing the steps that would get you there, and each one of those steps, you're like, I could take that step. You've taken all of the steps with me until you've accepted that there could be descendants of humans that after enough iterations just physically weren't able to copulate anymore. And now that we're there, yeah, go for it.
May I just bring up big cats? We all know tigers, lions, and whatever. You can sort of have a lion, tiger, a liger, but I believe, generally speaking, they're all pretty separate. And if you get down to the ones that we produced our domestic Alice cats from, I think about 1 in 10 of the litter of the bigger cat, the wild ones, is a little kitten. And that's what they got with the little kittens. They breed those and they make the domestic cats we have now. Now, if one of those domestic cats breeds with the original species, it reverts back to its wildcat roots. That tends to be the dominant gene. But across cats, are they different species? Or are we, there's clades and species in all different groups. So our cats are a really good example to use here. This is me asking a question.
Yeah.
It's more a bringing up a point that could be relevant. Thanks, guys.
In my opinion, right, and this is what you have to look into taxonomy and how they classify different kinds of things from genus to clades to species, right? You'll find that a lot of the classifications are arbitrary. There's no like absolute universal classification for species. It seems to be very arbitrary based on the main factor is whether they can reproduce or not, or whether they're viable or not, which I find to be extremely arbitrary for the same reasons that I brought up Homo sapiens not being viable. Groups of Homo sapiens not being viable doesn't make them a different species. Now, when it comes to cats, whether it's a modern house cat or a saber-toothed tiger, right? They're both cats. They're the same species, even though you have drastic different morphology. Just because you have drastic different morphologies, or whether something can reproduce or not, doesn't mean it's a different species, or it's now began to speciate. That's just genetic flexibility. That's all it is.
Yeah, I also want to comment
Genetic
as well.
flexibility?
Ligers usually can't mate with tigers or lions. Most male ligers are sterile. So when you start hybridizing animals, I think other biological effects happen. And that could be mutations, and mutations 99% of the time are usually negative. So I don't think
what about that 1%?
I don't think that's I'm only giving 99% because I'm not an expert, right? But from everything I've seen and everything I've read, mutations, we don't have evidence of positive adaptive mutations. They tend to either be neutral or negative.
Oh, I don't think you can tell if adaptation is positive until it's in hindsight, right? You can get something that starts out looking really crap, but then if the Spanish flu comes around and you've got an underactive immune system, it can turn out to be advantageous.
Right. I understand that, but you've also, with angular resolution and things in the foreground, maybe choppy waves and stuff, you can get a lot of bottom-up disappearance on a flat surface. Heat distortion. Then you've got the thickness of the actual, I've forgotten what it's called, I think it's called turbulence, where the closer you are to the water, the more obscure things become. So you will actually feel, like it will feel like the bottom is not visible where the top is.
Depending on how far you are from the object that you're observing, how far the observer is, a 1 foot wave has the potential to block, or a 6 foot wave could block like a 10,000 foot mountain, dude.
Right. Exactly. So why should we believe it's Earth curve when we know it's possible on a flat Earth? And these observations are fair.
Yeah, so it can go either way, right? There are some things that look a little bit iffy for a globe. There are many things that look very iffy for a flat Earth. So if you throw out the data that requires but you rely on the straightness of lines of light near the horizon, when you're down near the surface of water, if you throw that out and say that's not a good one, you just move on to ones that are better. Or you take some of the data and you go, which of this data, how bad can it be?
Straightness of lines of light at the horizon, though. I already told you, you have something called a diffraction line that goes into your vanishing point. You're not expecting depth perception works in this way, like the Rayleigh criterion does, that in the distance, the light curves and merges together. So no, we wouldn't.
The criterion is about resolvability. That's fixed with a lens. So
but what I'm telling you is there's a diffraction line into the vanishing point. At distance, the light is bending and wrapping at the horizon, so we wouldn't expect straight lines of light in depth perception. And this is the fundamental difference. You guys don't take perspective into account. We expect these things because we are taking perspective into account with depth.
Well, you think you are, right? But nobody agrees with perspective, right? It requires things look like they are behind us.
Oh, is that why there's millions of flat earthers? Is that why there's millions of us? Yeah,
sure,
carry on.
Yeah. That's why there's only a few million of you. That's why there's billions of globers.
Yeah, because most people have never questioned it.
That's
yeah.
Well, that's just not likely, right? It's not likely that all those pilots haven't ever questioned it, haven't ever asked themselves what parts about my job relate to the fact that I'm on a globe. That's just not probable,
There's
right?
plenty
It's a
of
cop-out.
pilots that are flat earthers, dude. On
Yeah,
There's
record.
not
No,
billions.
there's
Dude, what are you
There's not
not.
talking about?
billions of pilots in the world in the first place anyway. You just said there's billions
Right.
of Glovers, so and then you like changed it to pilots for some reason.
Sure. I've
But
described the
yeah,
full
we
set
did
of
actually
Globers and then
have
described
Xanax.
one of the subset.
Excuse me, sir. I was talking. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we did have Xanax the other day in here, and he said that when your perspective, you know how the ground ramps up and the sky ramps down. He said it could be possible with refraction, with the ground ramping up to block things bottom up.
That's cool. Then what did you say? That sounds like a fun conversation. Let's hear it again.
I was just listening. I wasn't talking.
Sick.
Yeah, it's called. You got
Are we just
tolerance.
changing? Are we just on the topic spam now?
Well, are we gonna talk about perspective, or we're gonna talk about refraction? Which is it?
I mean, like
When you
the
combine
the
them-
core point is simple, that we both think the same amount of curvature is happening in a different direction, right?
I think
So my
the
point
core
is,
point
if that
is they
thing is
both.
unreliable, focus on something else, like what our gyroscopes tell us. Also, if you just go, what should that bending look like? Does it only appear to be at the surface? Yeah. When we look up, nobody claims there's any, right? If you look straight up, do you claim there any refraction? Should there be any refractive effects? Oh, you do. You claim refractive effects for which we have no mechanism. So whose claim is weaker? We can't just go, oh, they're the same. You go, oh, in this one area, the only area I try to prove flat Earth is based on the behavior of water over light over bodies of water directly above the surface on warm days. That's the only thing we look at. And I accept that that's somewhat fallible. It seems like you've picked a fallible method. And on the days that the needle waggles in the flat Earth direction, you snap a photo.
No,
go
dude,
running
this
home with all
is
victory.
sneaky rhetoric. I was responding to Cole's comment, which is that there's visible curvature, and that can only be the explanation could be that Earth's a ball. So this is a response, not a positive argument. So don't be sneaky about it.
Also, if you accept pragmatism as a justification, right? Like, because it works, you know, because I think that you do a little bit, right? The gyroscope, like that's a pragmatic evidence that you have because it works. Then if it is a justification, then flat Earth and globe Earth both have a justified true belief at that point. Because flat
I don't think
earthers say locally.
I don't say pragmatism leads to knowledge. I don't know.
Is it a
whether it's true.
justification? Is it a justification?
Sure, it's one of many heuristics you'd use.
Okay.
Things that are true tend to work is generally a heuristic you can use and rely on. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So if that is a justification, then flat Earth and globe Earth both have justified true beliefs, because on the local level, you can treat the Earth as flat, stationary, planar, and it pragmatically
What is the point you're
works.
making? You sometimes can ignore variables.
Excuse me, sir. If you let me just finish, you'll hear the point that I'm making. So locally, you could treat the world as it's flat, and it works pragmatically. Now, some people are like, well, if I want to observe a sunset in my local reality, it seems that if I treat the world as a sphere, I can make easier sense of it, and therefore it works. So if you both have justified true beliefs, what are you going to do now? You both have that.
Right, but you're going to look for the pragmatism isn't, oh, that guy cooks really nice stew, so I'm sure he votes in the right way, right? I don't just go, that guy is good at something, therefore I believe everything about him, right? The pragmatism you are directing specifically at, who's the kind of person likely to know about this answer? And I'll go to that person with the best results, right? So you're describing bad results and a bad way of seeking them out, whereas what I'm saying is it's a good heuristic to use. Is if you say trying to say who's correct, right? Who's a better architect?
No, that's not what I'm talking about at all. You like totally missed everything I said, dude. Must have went over your head.
Sorry, say it again.
If you both have a justified true belief, how do you prove one to be not a justified true belief when you use pragmatism as a justification and you both have it?
Because you could be justified and one of them not true, right? You're just adding true in there.
If it's pragmatic and it works, it's true. That's what you said.
No, but I'm looking at it where it would be useful. You're saying, if I am in a place where the shape of the Earth doesn't matter, can I ignore the shape of the Earth? Yeah. But that's not testing
How does
pragmatism.
that
That's
even?
saying
How does that
it's
even
not pragmatic
exist?
because it's
How
not
could you
pragmatic in that.
possibly be in a place
Because
that the
I'll show
shape of
you.
the Earth doesn't matter? That's ridiculous.
Lots of places in knitting. Can you show me how the shape of the Earth matters in knitting?
Exactly. But we're not talking
So
about
then,
knitting.
if
We're
I'm being
talking about the
pragmatic,
practical application of
yeah,
using the Earth. So
bingo,
if I want to
bingo,
fly over the Earth,
bingo.
if I want to build on the Earth, I can treat it like it's flat. I could treat it like it's
False.
stationary. It's
False.
no problem. If anyone
No.
wants to build a house, they can treat plums as parallel. It's no
True.
problem.
True.
Yes, you
True.
can. Okay.
Where-
So
So
that's
where
the
it is,
pragmatic effect that
that's
flat earthers have a justified true belief that in their local reality, the earth is flat. So therefore, they can now claim the earth is flat locally for me. And you can say, yeah, I agree with you. It is flat locally. But if you go to non-local, non-reality, it's no longer flat. And they go, that's
this is just a
retarded
filibuster. You're getting
because
away
there
from
is
the point.
absolutely no such thing as non-local, non-reality. So you guys claim you can go to non-local,
Oh,
non-reality,
come on,
while
man.
flat
This
earthers
is
are
just
just
too much.
strictly staying in local reality.
You're not. You're using pragmatism.
You are
works if
really
you go.
grasping at straws.
Yeah, pragmatism works where you go where it's pragmatic to know about it. So an airline pilot, it is
What makes
pragmatic for that
pragmatism
person
a
to know about the.
justification?
So let me explain it. I'm in the middle of doing that. It is pragmatic to say an airline pilot should know the shape of the Earth. Their job intersects with it, and as such, you cannot treat the Earth as flat when you're in a plane, right? You cannot navigate that way. You might be able to keep the wings level by doing that, but you won't be able to navigate. So where it is pragmatic to treat the Earth as closer to how it is, that's when you'll do it. That's when you apply the pragmatism. You're saying if I'm in a realm where it is not pragmatic to look at the shape of the Earth, I can ignore the shape of the Earth, then you're not using pragmatism. You're using the opposite of it. You're
though,
choosing when
Eggs.
to close your eyes.
That's
No,
wrong. That's like having a business, right? And somebody wants to go it alone, and you're basically saying you can't do it because you don't have an ERP system. Like just because you've got a system to accommodate the model of the Earth doesn't mean that what are you not following? What I'm saying is just because you've got a system and a coordinate system doesn't mean that you can have a flat Earth coordinate system that pilots can use. And what Torah said, it's actually worse for you because we don't. It isn't just the point that we can treat the Earth as flat. If you try to treat the Earth as a globe as a pilot, if you try to treat the Earth as a globe as a pilot while flying, you're going to crash into the ground, my friend.
What? How? Explain that.
Because you're not taking into account any of the globe geometry. So what you've appealed to is a coordinate system. We could create a coordinate system.
No. Show that what you said.
Shape.
Why are planes crashing?
Why do we use gray circle routes?
Exactly.
Because the coordinate system that we developed is based on the stars in the sky. I don't know if you guys understand what a celestial sphere is, but yeah, that's how we developed our coordinate system.
Such a terrible answer. If the sky is a
Yeah,
sphere, then
you know what's
has
even
to be.
more of a terrible answer?
Terrible answer.
What you just gave, because you didn't give a rebuttal. All you did was do an ad hominem attack or just try to hand wave away the argument. But you didn't give any rebuttal to any of it. So you are garbage, sir. You are full of rhetoric and full of garbage, dude. You're just full of
accuse me of ad
bullshit.
homs and call me garbage?
Get him.
Yes,
that was a
I
dern,
did.
everybody. That's a dern. You were doing it right now.
That's fine. I'm stooping to your level because the argument's been given and then you hand wave dismissed it. And dude, it doesn't matter at this point. You're retarded. That's it. It's the end of the game. It's over. They both have justified true beliefs. You can't take away someone's knowledge. If you grant pragmatism as a justification, that's why you're in a problem. And if you think justified true belief equals knowledge, that's why you're in a problem.
You just not follow the conversation. I'm saying if you've got
Torah.
pragmatism where you want to apply the pragmatism is where it's going to matter about the shape of the Earth, and you're just not responding to that. A pilot does need to know.
Pragmatism leads you to Munchausen's trilemma, which makes knowledge impossible.
You're just not responding. You're just not responding. You're just skipping away from the point.
Pragmatism is a part of Munchausen's trilemma, so obviously it can't be a justification because Munchausen's trilemma tells you knowledge would be impossible if it is the case that you can only use pragmatism for a justification. Exactly, it's not knowledge to know that the Earth is a globe. I get it, dude. Yeah, awesome.
I don't. I'm just saying it's probably a globe because of pragmatism makes it more probably true because the people who pragmatically would need to know it's a globe all treat it as one. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
How
that's
if you're building a
arbitrary.
house, you can
Cool.
treat it like it's flat. Well done.
Cool
You've
story.
applied
Thanks for your
pragmatism in the
opinion,
very
man.
worst place, and then you've not looked for somebody treating it as flat. You've looked for the absence of somebody treating it like a globe. They don't treat it as completely flat. They don't treat Turkey as doing anything if they're building a house in New York, right? So they're not treating the world anyway. You just make this example of some people don't take the fact that the Earth's curved into account and ignore all the people who should, because all of those people do. And then you go, oh, pragmatically, it's the same kind of thing because sometimes I can find people in knitting circles who don't know their latitude.
Yeah, it's called straw
Dude,
dress.
you're like spiraling out at this point. You're twisted up, obviously, because I just demonstrated that if you are in the Munchausen trilemma, you have not developed any knowledge. You've destroyed the
I don't have
possibility
knowledge.
of knowledge.
Congrats you,
And then you
and I don't
go,
know that.
oh, if someone's building a house,
I'm
they
gonna
ought
come
to
back when
consider
Torah's
what's
not
going
here.
on in Turkey like non-local, non-reality. Dude, you just demonstrated my point for me, okay? You both have a justified true belief. Justified true belief
I'm not
obviously isn't the
commenting on the
thing that
truth.
brings us to knowledge. Thanks.
I'm not commenting on truth. I'm describing where pragmatism applies, where you can reason quite likely that when I'm asking somebody about tire pressures,
What's the argument for that?
When I'm arguing about tire pressures, my pragmatic person to go to might be a race car driver, it might be a mechanic, it might be somebody who engineers cars. It's not going to be to somebody because they're a Sagittarian, right? So just pragmatically, searching around for somebody who isn't taking something into account isn't pragmatically searching for the right person.
Okay, well,
And
you're
it's
claiming
such a good point.
pragmatism leads to a strong or weak argument. What's the deductive argument for that preserves that truth?
Sure. So what I think is the case, my argument would be
looking for a syllogism.
Well, you can just take the argument as it is and turn it into a syllogism if you like.
Can't take an inductive argument and come and preserve truth. Induction only, which pragmatism is a form of induction, only leads you to strong or weak arguments. So what is your deductive argument that proves pragmatism is inductive and it leads to strong or weak arguments?
This is just impossible. You're just not having a conversation. You're just not conversing.
You're done.
Sure. I mean, you seem to wreck everybody the same way without it ever making sense to anybody but you. You just go off with the fairies rather than discuss the pragmatism of.
Don't do a speech on how that didn't make
I
sense.
have no case.
Just gaslight. Now he has to gaslight.
Yeah. It's just going, who should know? And you use that 9 times out of 10, right? If you want legal advice, you don't go ask a house builder, do you? Right? You go to the person who's pragmatically most likely to know. So why does it suddenly break down? Why, when it gets to the shape of the Earth, do we abandon the reasoning we use elsewhere? We know what it looks when things get obscured behind things. We know what it looks like when things are staying the same size. We know what a bunch of these things look like. But so often we get to these topics where we know that pragmatism works. And then we get to the topic of the flat Earth and we go, oh, pragmatism? What, you just ask people who are probably going to know and just take their answer because they're an airline pilot? This is insanity. That's like going to a guy building a house.
No, it's not.
What about it? It's obviously not. Exactly. That's
Can I talk to the pilot, please?
He's right here.
You're the pilot?
Hi.
How long have you been flying for?
Like for Delta, 21 years, but maybe like 30 something.
I want to know, because they say the pilots know a lot. Do you think the Earth is flat or no?
I know it's flat.
You know it's flat?
We're probably going to know and just take their answer because they're an airline pilot. This is insanity. That's like going to a guy building a house.
No, it's not.
What about it? It's obviously not. Exactly.
This technique has come around because this technique has come around because you constantly make claims like, we know this, we know that, we know this. So people like Torah have developed this. But the reason I believe, I mean, I'll let Torah speak for himself, but the reason why I think it's important to have people like Torah around is to hold people to account for the claims that they make. You make out things that are just obvious and logical.
You just made the claim that I've said I know things, and I specifically avoid saying.
You just said we know. You just said we know that the Earth. You just said about 3 things, about the size of angular size.
We know bottom up extraction. We know that the angular side doesn't.
There you go. And that's why Torah, and no, I'm not saying why Torah is doing it, but that's why I think it's relevant that this person needs to approach the conversation, because you guys, like, you are so sly with how you answer your questions. Someone's got to hold you to account.
But just address the pragmatism. That's it. We don't need all of this meta.
Can I address?
The pragmatism conversation is, you are showing by not addressing it that it is such a strong argument we need to do anything but address it.
Can I say something?
Yeah, please.
Like, imagine like if like your mechanic, like imagine like your fuel pump went on your truck, and you took your truck to your mechanic, and your mechanic says, "Oh, it's a $3 million fuel pump," and now like some house builder that comes along and says, "That's a fucking ripoff." And that house builder, he's not a professional mechanic, but he's changed enough fuel pumps to know that $3 million is just fucking retarded. And we've got people being like, "You're going to trust a home builder over your mechanic?" Oh my God.
Well, let me respond to that. It's more like your fuel pump goes out and you go to a mechanic and you have 10,000 mechanics telling you, yes, it's a fuel pump. Yes, it's going out. But then you have one or two crazy guys over there who've been fired from being a mechanic and everything. And they say, "Oh, that's a starter. It's not a fuel pump." And y'all say, "Well, we must listen to those two guys instead of listening to the 10,000 guys who still have to drive work." That's
right.
more.
But if all the 3,000 mechanics tell you that the oil pump is $3 million, right? And you're thinking to yourself, "Wait a minute." And all the laymen in the world are like, "Dude, a fuel pump does not cost $3 million fucking dollars."
But that's not what I said.
Agreed.
I'm just trying to say is like that's what we're like. There's two different analogies in maybe in that sense, but what I mean is that like you've got modern mechanics telling you that no, fuel pumps always cost $3 million, and then you've got normal people that are like, "Dude, you can get a fucking pump on Amazon put it in yourself." And fucking, and the mechanics are like, "Oh my God, you don't trust mechanics? You're a fucking heretic." That's what it feels like.
Oh, I think it's not the argument either. See what the list price is, right?